Chapter 122. Feng Haochen still had a smile on his face. He did not kneel down. Instead, he slowly sat down on the stone chair behind him and took a sip of tea from the table. The slave pill did not seem to affect Feng Haochen at all. Impossible. You clearly took the slave pill. I saw the slave pill's reaction. Why aren't you listening to my orders? Kneel down. Gue Xinhua looked at Feng Haochen in disbelief. Panic flashed across his face. How could the slave pill lose its effect? Although the slave pill was rare, he had seen other people take it. Basically, the person who took the slave pill had no chance of resisting. Even the true god of the three continents was a human. Why was he not affected by the slave pill? Kneel down, he ordered again, wanting Feng Haochen to listen to his orders. However, Feng Haochen still sat there calmly and looked at Gue Xinhua with interest. Young man, it would be great if your master had more knowledge. Feng Haochen blinked his eyes kindly and asked unhurriedly, Do you know where the slave pills come from? How? Gue Xinhua asked subconsciously. Back then, I did everything I could to find the slave pill. I only wanted to use it to control the human. Who would have thought that someone would use it to control a human? And who would have thought that the slave pill would be used on the creator? A red light flashed across Feng Haochen's body. The slave pill flew out of his mouth and floated quietly in front of him. He reached out and touched it gently. The bright red slave pill slowly turned into powder and dissipated in the air like dust. The slave pill was invented by Feng Haochen. Gue Xinhua was stunned. Muyi was also stunned. Everything seemed to be a bit ridiculous. A true god invented the slave pill, and someone else wanted to use the slave pill to control the true god? Muyi remembered that when the Qingsong Taoist took the slave pill, he did not have any thoughts of resisting the red-clothed youth. This powerful pill was invented by his master? How is this possible? Gue Xinhua frowned. Even though he came from a mysterious the gate of hell, he never knew how slave pills came about. He only knew that his master had given him the slave pill and told him not to be too ostentatious when using it, especially not to let the people of the Third Layer Palace know about it, because the slave pill was a forbidden drug on the Third Layer continent. Feng Haochen had destroyed the slave pill's recipe long ago, but the people from the Gate of Hell had somehow gotten their hands on it. This kind of medicinal pill was a wonderful method for people with bad intentions. Using the slave pills, they could create more loyal followers and even create a group of death squads that meant what they said. When I first created the slave pill, I went to Yaman to experiment with it. Unfortunately, it didn't work on Yaman. After that, I didn't pay attention to it. I didn't think that the recipe would be stolen by someone close to me and used in evil ways. In the end, the slave pill that didn't work on Yaman had a miraculous effect on humans. Feng Haochen felt helpless. He had invented the slave pill for a good reason. He wanted to gain a greater advantage in the war between the Yaman clan and the human race. However, the evil nature of human nature always led good things astray. Gue Xuanyua's expression was not good, and a gloomy look appeared on his pale face. Without the slave pill, he had lost his backing. He could not control Feng Haochen, and he could not achieve his goal. Things had become a bit troublesome for him. However, he suddenly laughed and said, Master said that normal methods won't work on you, so he left me a lot of ways out. Do you think I only have the slave pill and have no way out? Since the slave pill won't work, how about the ghost general? A trace of surprise finally appeared on Feng Haochen's face. He frowned. Ghost general, such a rare thing can't be owned by ordinary disciples like you. Are you from the ghost realm? Gue Xinhua smiled. It seems that the true God is indeed omniscient. Since you know about the ghost realm, can you resist the ghost general? Muyi was confused. He didn't know what a ghost realm was, nor did he know about the so-called ghost general. However, looking at his master's reaction, he seemed to be afraid of the ghost general. I thought that the ghost realm was extinct, but it turns out that it still exists. Feng Haochen was very surprised, but he was not in a hurry. It seemed that he wanted to see the legendary ghost general with his own eyes. In front of the ghost general, let's see how you can resist with your current cultivation. Gue Xinhua shouted. His whole body suddenly emitted a lot of white yin qi. The white in chi surged and rolled, and gradually formed a soul beside him. This was the twin of the gate of hell that Tian Ran mentioned. This soul was originally a person. It cultivated and grew together with Gue Xianyue, and when the time came, they would fight each other. Gue Xianyue won, and the other one was refined into a Yin spirit magic treasure by Gue Xianyue. The twin was expressionless. He just looked at Feng Haochen indifferently, without any human emotions in his eyes. The most terrifying thing was that his cultivation was also at the nascent soul stage. The reason why the people of the Gate of Hell were so powerful was that fighting with one disciple of the Gate of Hell was equivalent to fighting with two disciples of the Gate of Hell. The twins' cultivation was the same, but one had a body and the other did not. In a one-on-one fight, the disciples of the Gate of Hell always had an absolute advantage. Empty Ghost Realm. Gue Xianyue and the twins' hands overlapped each other, forming a gray space. In the space, there were wandering ghosts, howling nonstop. This space was a square, and there was a red ghost flag at each of the 8 corners. There were many wriggling ghosts on the ghost flags. Each of the ghosts had a ferocious expression, and their eyeballs were protruding. It was as if they were suffering from the pain of being eaten alive. They were all struggling to break free from the ghost flags. Feng Haochen was brought into this empty ghost realm without any resistance. He frowned because he was not the only one in the empty ghost realm. There was another ghost figure standing there. It was a ghost figure dressed in black. His head was covered in ghost fog, and his face could not be seen clearly. However, the aura he emitted was no different from Feng Haochen's. This ghost figure let out a miserable laugh, as if he was grinding his teeth. It was unbearable. This ghost general does not have much ghost energy. He is not a real ghost general. A real ghost general cannot appear in my heaven and earth array. You are not a member of the ghost realm's bloodline. Feng Haochen looked at the ghost figure in front of him. With his vast experience, he could see through the ghost figure in front of him in an instant. This ghost figure was the ghost general that Gue Xianyue mentioned. The power of the ghost general was called ghost energy, and it was a secret technique of the ghost realm's bloodline. Although this ghost general is not a real one, it is enough to replace you. Gue Xianyue chanted 7 ghost curses. Every time he chanted 7 ghost curses, the twin soul would become a little more solid. The ghost fog on the ghost general's head in the empty ghost realm would also dissipate a little. The Gate of Hell's spell was extremely strange. Whether it was the twin or the fake ghost general, they were all frightening. Feng Haochen's expression was solemn. The ghost realm spell is used to deceive the heavenly Tao. You must know that if you deceive the laws of heaven and earth, you will be discovered by the heavenly Tao sooner or later. When that time comes, you will be punished by the heavenly Tao. This is the reason why the ghost realm's bloodline went extinct. Even if you deceive the immortal confinement prison today, sooner or later, you will be punished by the heavenly Tao and your soul will be destroyed. Gue Xianyue ignored Feng Haochen and focused on chanting his ghost curses. When he finished chanting all 49 ghost curses, the spirit energy on the twin's body became more and more solid. The ghost fog on the ghost general's head dissipated, revealing his true appearance. He was exactly the same as Feng Haochen. Go! Gue Xianyue waved his finger, and the twin rushed into the empty ghost realm and directly entered Feng Haochen's body. His speed was so fast that, even with Feng Haochen's current cultivation, he could not react in time. His face was extremely pale and revealed a solemn expression. Then, the twin rushed out of Feng Haochen's body and merged into the ghost general opposite him. Boom! Golden Tao patterns appeared in the sky above the Mayan mountain range, appearing and disappearing. The Golden Tao patterns were complicated ancient characters. Each ancient character was extremely mysterious and kept floating between heaven and earth. It was simple and ancient. These Golden Tao patterns were the array patterns of the immortal confinement prison. These array patterns were originally under Feng Haochen's command, but at this time, they were all injected into the ghost general's body. Chi! Feng Haochen spat out a mouthful of blood and staggered a few steps. His chest heaved up and down. The array, eye of the heaven and earth array, was forcibly pulled out from his body and transferred to the ghost general opposite him. In an instant, Feng Haochen's expression quickly became dispirited, as if he had suffered a great injury. "Master!" Mu Yu roared angrily and wanted to rush over to help his master, but he was fixed in place by Gue Xianyue and could not move. Looking at his master's painful expression, he knew that he was too weak. In front of Gue Xianyue, who was in the nascent soul stage, he could do nothing but watch his master get hurt by the other party. He was filled with hatred. Why were there always people who hurt others for some cruel purpose? The last step is to kill you. The array, eye of the heaven and earth array, will be completely replaced by my ghost general. Gue Xianyue looked at Feng Haochen, who was only in the Jindan period, and smiled coldly. You should know that the ghost general is a lifeless thing. Even if it becomes the array, eye of the immortal confinement prison, it won't change anything. Feng Haochen spat out another mouthful of blood. But I can speed up the loss of spiritual energy in the Mayan mountain range. This way, all humans can be destroyed faster, right? When the array eye strangles a Jindan period, there will be a soul for me to use. Isn't that good? Gue Xianyue snickered, and a gloomy black sword appeared in his hand. The true god disappeared after destroying the Yumeng devil clan. The world thinks that the true god is no longer in this world. Today, I will make what the world thinks a reality. Chapter 123. Feng Haochen steadied himself in time. His body slanted, and Gue Xuanyue's black sword pierced through his shoulder, missing his vital parts. However, blood gushed out of the wound on Feng Haochen's shoulder, soaking his robe. He pulled out Gue Xuanyue's black sword with a stern expression. You said yourself that there is almost no one in the world who can kill me. Do you think you can kill me? Feng Haochen's blood was like a flame, dispersing all the yin qi on Gue Xuanyue's black sword. The black sword let out a series of hissing sounds, as if it had met its nemesis. A painful wail came from the black sword, and then the black sword broke into two pieces. Your black sword has sealed many souls. I'm afraid it has killed at least 1,000 people. Feng Haochen's voice was mixed with anger. This black sword might be useful to others, but it could not hurt him at all. Gue Xianyue stared at Feng Haochen in a panic. He was shocked to find that he had lost control of the sword. However, he quickly calmed down and said fiercely, "No one can kill you because of the heaven and earth array. Now, my ethereal ghost realm, you are just an ordinary Jindan period cultivator. How can you deal with me, who is at the nascent soul stage?" Gue Xianyue also rushed into the ethereal ghost domain. The gloomy aura on his body rolled out like a tidal wave. Thousands of ghostly shadows appeared, roaring and roaring as they swept toward Feng Haochen. Feng Haochen panted slightly and threw away Gue Xuanyue's black sword. He turned to look at Mu Yu and said seriously, "Mu Yu, remember? No matter what happens, don't fall into a state of killing." Feng Haochen knew that once Mu Yu's mood fluctuated, he would fall into a state of unconsciousness. Although that state would inadvertently increase Mu Yu's ability, he knew the consequences. He did not want Mu Yu to lose his consciousness here. A flying sword that was as light as water appeared in Feng Haochen's hand. This sword was called Light String. The sword was white and emitted a soft light, but it could not hide its sharpness. The first time Mu Yu saw this flying sword was at the academy. That night, he secretly went to test his talent. The testing stone did not show any color, so he thought his talent was only gray. Feng Haochen used this sword to illuminate the stone, allowing Mu Yu to see his true purple talent. "Master," Mu Yu murmured. Once he could not control, he would fall into a state of endless killing. He had fallen into it in the demonic beast forest and flowing water village, but he had managed to wake up in time. But Feng Haochen's sword. Feng's cultivation was a level. After all, he did not dare to underestimate him. Even's cultivation level was. Rumor has it that the 9 guides of Heavenly Sword is unparalleled. It killed 5 Yumon spirit lords. I would like to have a taste of the world's 9 guides of Heavenly Sword. Gue Xianyue waved his hand, and a soul-amassing banner appeared in his hand. This banner was filled with yin qi. Once it appeared, wails could be heard everywhere. It was like a ghost banner from the underworld. The ghost qi between heaven and earth continuously gathered in his hand. Swoosh! Gui Xianyue shook the banner. Countless ghost shadows roared at Feng Haochen. They opened their ugly mouths and pounced on Feng Haochen. These ghosts were the cultivators that he had secretly killed. They were filled with resentment and turned into the most terrifying, murderous aura. It was like ice-cold frost. Wherever it went, the trees would wither, and their vitality would be sucked away. The light string sword in Feng Haochen's hand split into 9. He was not like Muyu, who could only split 5 flying swords. He could split one heavenly sword into 9 at the same time. 9 sword shadows soared into the sky and began to perform 9 sword moves. Each sword move transformed into 9 moves. 9 by 9, 81. Instantly, countless sword shadows appeared in the sky. The falling Dust Heart Sutra was activated at will. Rays of sword qi shone brightly and soared into the sky, stirring up the surrounding air. He only had the cultivation of the Jindan period, but when facing Gui Xianyue, who was in the nascent soul stage, he could perform such a terrifying sword move. How could the 9 guides of Heavenly Sword be child's play? 9 by 9 to 1. The 9th move of the falling Dust Sword art. 9 by 9 to 1. All things returned to the origin. 9 swords soared into the sky. Suddenly, lightning flashed and thunder roared. 9 white dragons rolled in the clouds. The majestic aura shrouded everything. All the demonic beasts within 100 miles were prostrated on the ground. The mighty dragon's aura suppressed them so much that they did not dare to breathe. The violent aura covered the sky and swept away all the resentful spirits. Suddenly, the 9 sword shadows gradually formed a majestic heavenly sword in the sky. The 100-feet heavenly sword was solemn and simple. It stabbed toward Gui Xianyue. It was a simple sword. There was nothing fancy about it. Gui Xianyue's face instantly turned pale. He was horrified to find that his aura had been locked by the heavenly sword. He felt as if he was being suppressed by a mountain. He wanted to raise his hand, but he found that it was difficult to even move a finger. He did not understand. He did not understand at all. The sword shadow Chun Feng only had the cultivation of the Jindan period. How could he perform such a terrifying sword move? He had already reached the nascent soul stage. However, as a nascent soul stage cultivator, he was extremely terrified. He could not block this sword move. He widened his eyes. In his eyes, the sword seemed to transform into thousands of swords. Each sword sealed his escape route. No matter how he tried to block, he could not dodge this sword move. He was unwilling to give up. He roared. However, the thousands of swords in his eyes turned into one sword and pierced through him. Boom! A terrifying aura spread out with Gui Xianyue as the center. His body was blown into pieces. Strange auras tore the surrounding space. His body exploded, but there was no blood. Only endless ghost fog spread out. An unwilling roar gradually fell from the black fog. The arrogant Gui Xianyue was instantly buried in the sharp sword aura of the heavenly sword. Is he dead? Muyu looked at the sword in shock. The 9 guides of the heavenly sword was so terrifying. Gui Xianyue could not even take one move before he was smashed into pieces. Master used the 9 guides of the heavenly sword with the cultivation of the Jindan period. He easily killed Gui Xianyue, who was in the nascent soul stage, with one move. Was this the true power of the 9 guides of the heavenly sword? Up until now, Muyu had only been able to condense 5 swords. However, his master was able to create 9 shadows with one sword, and the 9 shadows returned to one. That was the deepest, profound meaning of this sword technique. Muyu had never been able to use it because he was unable to understand the profound principles of that sword technique. The plain and simple heavenly sword did not have any fancy moves. It was just a simple move. One move could destroy everything. One move could conquer the world. If one could block this move, they would live. If not, they would die. Gui Xianyue, who was in the nascent soul stage, had overestimated himself. His opponent was a true god from the third continent. Even if his cultivation was only in the Jindan period, his heavenly sword carried the power of heaven. How could Gui Xianyue, who was full of yin qi, withstand it? If a true god's 9 guides of the heavenly sword could be blocked so easily, it would be too ridiculous. The heavenly sword turned back into a light string and returned to Feng Haochun's hand. Feng Haochun landed beside Muyu. He looked very haggard, and there were streaks of black qi flashing across his face. "Master, are you okay?" Muyu could move now. He supported Feng Haochun and looked at the black qi on his face. His heart ached. Master's 9 forms of the Dustfall had already reached the acme of perfection. It was not a problem for him to transform one sword into 9 shadows. However, with Master's current cultivation, it seemed that using this move had consumed a lot of his energy. "I haven't used my sword for a long time. My body has become rusty." He will also be restricted in the empty ghost domain. It is impossible for him to block this move of mine. However, he will not die so easily. Feng Haochun sat down with Muyu's help. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth again. The 9 guides of the heavenly sword had consumed a lot of his spiritual energy. Muyu hurriedly wiped the blood from the corner of Feng Haochun's mouth. He did not care if Gui Xianyue was still alive. However, he had to pull himself together. "Master, let me heal you." Muyu desperately poured his spiritual energy into Feng Haochun's body. However, Feng Haochun shook his head. "There is no need. That black sword just now was very powerful. It was filled with death qi and could penetrate a person's soul. If I want to destroy it, I can only use my blood to remove the resentment within. However, when the death qi entered my body almost could not withstand it. I also used the 9 guides of the heavenly sword. I can no longer suppress the death qi in my body. Everyone will die eventually. I have suffered for so many years. I can finally be free for a while." "No, Master. I will not let you die. I will not." Muyu's mind was in a mess. He could already see that his master's life force was gradually fading away. He was very sensitive to life force. He could even feel how strong a person's life force was. He saw the formless life force dissipating from his master's body. The death qi was slowly taking over his body. He was not willing to accept this result. He could not let the old man who brought him into the Tao die like this. He could not accept it. However, a manic laughter interrupted him, making his heart sink to the bottom. "Haha, the 9 guides of the heavenly sword is indeed worthy of its reputation. You can actually destroy my physical body with your golden core cultivation." Gui Xuanyue's figure appeared from the ghost fog again. However, his body was very illusory. His physical body had been directly destroyed by the heavenly sword. However, he was, after all, a person from the gate of hell. He had specialized in cultivating the power of the soul all his life. Even if his physical body was destroyed, his soul could still survive. Feng Haochun looked at Gui Xianyue quietly. He knew the power of his sword. Even Gui Xianyue, who was in the nascent soul stage, could not have survived. He had not only destroyed Gui Xuanyue's physical body, but also shook his foundation. He squeezed out a smile and said, "That sword destroyed your body and your soul. Now, can your soul power compare to your twin? Will the twin still listen to you?" The ethereal ghost realm had long disappeared, but the ghost general in the sky was still there. Gui Xuanyue's twin was residing in the ghost general's body. The twin appeared there with Feng Haochun's appearance, staring coldly at the 2 people on the stone platform. Then, he turned his gaze to Gui Xianyue. "Gui Xianyue, you defeated me back then. Now, your situation is not optimistic." Suddenly, human emotions appeared in the twins' eyes. The voice was extremely cold, but it was another unfamiliar man. Gui Xianyue was seriously injured and could no longer suppress the twin. The twin had regained his consciousness. Gui Xuanyue's expression changed drastically. He was careless and did not expect the 9 guides of the heavenly sword to be so powerful. The true god of the third continent had only used one sword to greatly damage his vitality and cause him trouble. "Guiyin, now that you have the body of the ghost general, You'd better not have any ideas about me. Do you want to ruin Master's plan? Gue Xianyue said coldly. The twin's name was Guiyin. He snorted, "What does Master's plan have to do with me? It's impossible for you to get rid of me unless you have enough soul power. As long as you help me kill. Don't you dare." Gue Xianyue was shocked and furious. The twin's figure appeared in front of him. He roared and wanted to escape, but the twin had already firmly grasped his soul. He opened his mouth and swallowed Gue Xianyue. Why wouldn't I dare? The twin mercilessly swallowed Gue Xianyue's soul. An even more terrifying aura came from the twin's body. The two souls of the nascent soul stage merged into one. The twin's entire body underwent earth-shaking changes. His cultivation had surpassed the original Gue Xianyue and seemed to be on the verge of breaking through the shackles of the nascent soul stage. Boom! The formation in the sky surged again. Thunder and lightning rolled in the clouds, faintly accumulating power. The heaven and earth formation of the Moyen mountain range did not allow people with cultivation above the nascent soul stage to appear. The twins' swallowing of Gue Xianyue had threatened the heaven and earth formation. Guiyin, if you dare to refine me, we will both die. Gue Xianyue's voice came from the twin's body. He roared, his voice vicious and unwilling. The twin realized this. He was now the eye of the heaven and earth formation. The heaven and earth formation would not allow him to enter a higher realm. He forcibly suppressed his aura and snorted. This ghost general is just a fake. I need to change my body. The twins' eyes stopped on Muyu. Muyu's body had a majestic vitality and was the best host for a soul. Boy, your body is not bad. I will take good care of it for you. Your soul belongs to me. The twin rushed out of the ghost general's body. A long spear of Yin Qi appeared in his hand. With a hoarse cry, he stabbed at Muyu. The twin's cultivation was also at the nascent soul stage. Under his deterrence, Muyu could not move. Feng Haochen had been seriously injured and no longer had any strength to destroy the twin. Chapter 124. Muyu, you must find a way to get out of the Moyun mountain range. Feng Haochen suddenly used his last breath to block in front of Muyu, calmly facing the twin's spear. He wanted to use his own life to exchange for Muyu's chance of survival. He was already at the end of his rope. He didn't care about death, but he couldn't let Muyu be hurt by the people from the gate of hell. No! Muyu wanted to push his master away, but he couldn't. He was so weak, everyone was protecting him, but he didn't have any ability to protect others. His consciousness gradually blurred. The gray light in his eyes flickered, and that strange killing intent once again engulfed his entire body. Don't fall into this state. Feng Haochen used the last of his spirit energy to wake Muyu up. He didn't want Muyu to fall into that state of losing control. Once Muyu lost control and didn't wake up, he knew that the consequences would be even more terrible than the twins. Muyu woke up, and the spear also arrived in front of him. However, the spear didn't pierce Feng Haochen. There was a person standing in front of him. It was Tianran. Tianran's immortal dew sword blocked the twin's spear. Her expression was solemn, and the immortal dew in her hand flashed with orange light as she pointed it at the twins. You dare to kill a true god. Aren't you people from the gate of hell afraid of being destroyed by the Triple Palace? Triple Palace? Who would know that Jianing and Chen Feng would die here? The twins stared at Tianran with a cautious expression. He didn't expect that Tianran would suddenly appear. Tianran also had a nascent soul cultivation. If he wanted to kill Muyu, he had to deal with Tianran first. My immortal dew sword? Who is Miao Yuyin to you? Feng Haochen stared at the immortal dew in Tianran's hand and asked in surprise. He gave this sword to Miao Yuyin, but he didn't expect it to appear in this girl's hands. Senior, Miao Yuyin is my master. Senior, don't worry. I won't let the people from the gate of hell succeed today. Tianran smiled sweetly at Feng Haochen. When she saw Feng Haochen standing in front of Muyu, her heart was filled with envy. A true god was actually willing to risk his life to save his disciple. Was his disciple that important to him? Why did you only come now? The moment Tianran appeared, Muyu knew that he had wrong Tian Ran. He thought that Tian Ran was in cahoots with the Gate of Hell. He didn't expect that Tian Ran would save their lives at the critical moment. Tian Ran was also confused. How can you run faster than me? However, before Muyu could answer her, the ghost sound spear had already rushed towards Tian Ran. Tian Ran had no choice but to turn around and fight back. The orange sword light flashed for tens of thousands of feet and intertwined with the spear. Tian Ran's cultivation wasn't any weaker than the twins. Lotus flowers appeared in Tian Ran's hands. Each lotus flower seemed to come alive and flew towards the twins under the guidance of the immortal dew. The lotus flowers scattered in the air, and the petals covered the twins' spear, giving the twins an illusion that they couldn't use their full strength. Red Lotus Art, you're from the Red Dust sect. The twins coldly snorted. Go Sound, you've only just recovered. How can you fight against the Red Dust sect? If you want to kill that brat, you'll need my help. Gue Xuanyue's voice came from the twin souls again. The twins clearly realized this. If it was any other time, he wouldn't be afraid of Tian Ran. However, he had just recovered from the resuscitation of a soul item. Even if he was stronger than the injured Gue Xuanyue, he still wasn't Tian Ran's opponent. The Red Dust sect was no weaker than the Gate of Hell. How could a disciple of the Red Dust sect lose to a disciple of the Gate of Hell? As long as you kill Jianing and Chun Feng, we'll walk our own paths and have nothing to do with each other. What do you think? The twins were still hesitating when Gue Xuanyue spoke again. The twins were restrained by Tian Ran's Red Lotus, and he struggled to fight. In the end, he could only nod. Okay, help me kill that brat and the true god. We'll have nothing to do with each other in the future. After the twins forced Tian Ran back, they suddenly spat out Gue Xuanyue's soul from their mouths. Gue Xuanyue directly rushed towards Feng Haochen and Muyu. No! Tian Ran shouted and wanted to stop Gue Xuanyue. However, the twins emitted ghost energy that filled the sky and entangled Tian Ran. A black sword appeared in Gue Xuanyue's hand, and he stabbed towards Feng Haochen. For Gue Xuanyue, killing Feng Haochen was the most important thing. You're not allowed to hurt the true god. Tian Ran's fingers moved continuously, and thousands of lotus flowers flew out, instantly sucking away all the ghost energy from the twins. However, Gue Xuanyue's spear was about to pierce Feng Haochen's chest. Her mind was blank, and without thinking, she blocked in front of Feng Haochen. The black sword pierced Tian Ran's chest. The black sword formed by Yin energy was still dripping blood, and was only an inch away from Feng Haochen's body. Tian Ran swung the immortal dew sword in her hand and repelled Gue Xuanyue. Yin energy entered her body, and she fell in front of Feng Haochen. Muyu watched Tian Ran fall. Tian Ran blocked the attack for Feng Haochen at the critical moment. Why did she do that? Tian Ran turned to look at Feng Haochen and forced a smile. True God, my master said that you can't die. Feng Haochen was stunned. Muyu was also stunned. Why did Tian Ran block the attack for a stranger? Even if she revered the legendary true god of the continent, was she really willing to use her life to help a true god? My master said that you're a good person. Good people can't die. Tian Ran's face was pale, and the life in her body was quickly draining away. Child, what are you doing? Feng Haochen looked at Tian Ran with a pained expression. Someone had blocked the sword for him. If it was his disciple, he would only feel sad, but would not be surprised. However, how could an outsider whom he had never met before block such a fatal sword for him? He was already a dying man. He did not expect Tian Ran to do such a thing. Muyu's consciousness once again fell into chaos. He did not know why Tian Ran would sacrifice herself to save Feng Haochen. He also did not know what Tian Ran's goal was. He only knew that whether it was Tian Ran or his master, they could not die. This time, no matter how Feng Haochen called out to him, Muyu did not respond. He was too weak. He stubbornly wanted to use that state to deal with the enemy in front of him. He was trembling. He longed to kill. He wanted power. He wanted to kill the twins. He wanted to save his master and Tian Ran. If he did not accept this state, then more people would die. A green light suddenly gushed out from his body, and traces of gray light flashed in his eyes. His left eye was incomparably pale, but the pupil was like an unfathomable black hole. His right eye was as black as ink, but the pupil was strangely white. One black and one white pupil appeared in his eyes. The black pupil was filled with a gloomy aura of death, while the white pupil was filled with an endless life force. He held the wood spirit of a shadow clone sword in his hand. The wood spirit was full of bumps and hollows, and the body of the sword was full of holes of various sizes. It looked extremely strange. However, when Muyu held the Mu Ling and stopped it, everything seemed so peaceful. Only the black and white aura on his body was rolling and chasing after each other, reflecting the green light. The gate of hell died. Muyu raised a Mu Ling in his hand. The surrounding trees suddenly wriggled and grew crazily. Long branches swayed with the wind in the valley. The leaves left the branches and surrounded Muyu. Muyu stepped on the green leaves. Half of the leaves were yellow and lifeless, while the other half was green and full of life. It was the interpretation of life and death. Insignificant skill. The twins' nascent soul stage aura shook violently, shattering all the leaves around him. However, more leaves grew out from the shattered leaves. They grew and multiplied endlessly as they crazily surrounded the twin. The twin roared, and his gloomy, spiritual energy rolled out again. He wanted to break through these strange leaves, but every time his spiritual energy shattered a leaf, more would grow out. Muyu waved his hand, and thousands of leaves seemed to be summoned as they densely flew towards the twin. Every leaf was half green and half green as it scraped against the twin's soul. Every time his soul was scraped by a leaf, his soul body would become a bit dimmer. Thousands of leaves penetrated his soul body and crisscrossed. In the blink of an eye, the twin became transparent, and only a trace of light was barely supporting him. He roared and hurriedly returned to the ghost general's body. The ghost general waved his hand, and golden runes appeared between heaven and earth, exploding towards the sky full of leaves. However, the trees in the Dragon-Tiger Gorge had already extended dozens of feet of branches and firmly bound the ghost general's body. Every time the ghost general shattered a branch, more would grow out. Life and death is but a blink of an eye. Muyu's left eye was covered with white light, while his right eye flickered with black chi. He closed his eyes, and his right eye suddenly opened. A strange black chi shot out from his eye and landed on the ghost general's body. The ghost general's body shook and no longer moved. A crack appeared on his body, and more cracks appeared on his body. Under the binding of the tree branches, he was crushed and turned into smoke with the wind, dissipating without a trace. The twins also couldn't escape. Muyu closed his right eye and opened his left eye again. White light shot out from his left eye and enveloped Feng Haochen and Tian Ran. The surrounding trees suddenly emitted bits of green light and slowly gathered into their bodies, healing their wounds and dispelling the death aura. Vigorous vitality returned to Feng Haochen and Tian Ran. Feng Haochen looked at Muyu, who was in the air. His injuries had already been healed, but his expression was grave. He understood that Muyu could not control this power. The heaven and earth array's runes surged again, and suddenly all gathered on Muyu's body. The Ghost General was originally the array core of the heaven and earth array's immortal trapping prison. However, Muyu destroyed the Ghost General and replaced him as the array core of the immortal trapping prison. In Muyu's mind, millions of human soul imprints appeared. Through the soul imprints, he could clearly see the evil and good of each soul. The ugly, selfish, and greedy souls of self-cultivators, killing each other and not being responsible for the lives of others. The essence of their souls could be seen clearly. Since you don't cherish life, then let me decide if you have the right to enjoy life. Killing was what he wanted to do. He could control a person's life and death in the blink of an eye. Why couldn't he be the master of the world? He could eliminate those humans who did not deserve to live in this world. He could reshuffle the cards in the Moyen Mountain Range. He could decide who would live according to his own preferences. Let's take a look at these lowly ants. Their lives were negligible. Muyu roared. His eyes shot out two rays of black and white light towards all the creatures in the Dragon-Tiger Gorge. Every insect and beast that was swept by the black light fell to the ground and died. Swept by the white light, their bodies grew bigger. He soared into the sky and was already a few hundred feet above the ground. He looked down at the earth and looked at the distant Qingshou city. There were many humans and self-cultivators there. He wanted everyone to crawl under his feet. As long as he wanted, he could decide everyone's life and death in the blink of an eye. He became the array core of the immortal trapping prison. In the Moyen Mountain Range, he was the king. You can only live if I think you have the right to live. Chapter 125. Feng Haochen blocked Muyu's path as he looked at Muyu. The once mischievous child had now fallen into madness. With power, it was easy to lose oneself. Muyu never knew how to fight against the other him in his body. He felt that he was too weak to protect the people he wanted to protect, so he chose to let the power in his body take control of his body. However, the power in his body was too terrifying. How could he control it? Muyu, stop. You should wake up. Feng Haochen looked into Muyu's eyes, fearless of the dangerous aura around him. Muyu's eyes were black and white, like the black and white impermanence, controlling the life and death of all things in the world. Under the illumination of the black light, all things were scared out of their wits. Under the baptism of the white light, all life was saved. That was no longer Muyu. His consciousness was imprisoned by the darkness in his body. If he didn't wake up in time, all the self-cultivators in the Moyen Mountain Range would be cleansed by him. He had already become the eye of the immortal confining prison, and he had the ability to decide the life and death of everyone. Feng Haochen had long known that Muyu's body had another terrifying power sleeping in it. That power was incomparably strong. That power worshipped killing and wanted to become the master of all life in the world, taking over this world. Muyu only wanted peace, and he liked to quietly watch life bloom. Muyu and the power in his body were diametrically opposite. One symbolized death, the other symbolized life. If life was no match for death, then the entire Moyen Mountain Range would be plunged into misery and suffering. I taught you to do things based on your heart. If you are worthy of your heart, then do it. If you feel that you're letting your heart down, then don't do it. Feng Haochen's voice was sonorous and powerful, like an echo in an empty valley, surging in Muyu's mind. He wanted to wake up the sleeping Muyu. Muyu usually listened to him, and only he could stop Muyu from losing himself. There were two voices arguing in Muyu's mind. No one could convince him, and no one could fully control this body. They intertwined with each other, desperately fighting for control of this body. Impatient. I do whatever I want, and I kill whenever I want. How can I let my heart down? No, Master said that everyone has the right to choose their own life, and others shouldn't take it away. Who are you? Why are you in my body? I am you. You call it life, and I call it death. Your master didn't have the ability to decide life and death in the blink of an eye. Master was the eye of the immortal confining prison. He could kill anyone, but he didn't do so. That was because he was weak. Now you're the array eye of the immortal confining prison. Didn't you always dislike the mutual deception between cultivators? Get rid of those messy people, leaving us life. That way, there wouldn't be no more killing. That's right, kill those humans who don't deserve to live. You can't completely control the immortal confining prison, but as long as you kill your master, this world will be yours. Used to, used to the twos to live to die. The black light in Muyu's right eye lit up. The aura of death engulfed his entire body, and the death in his body took the initiative. He felt that he had endless power. He didn't like the unfairness of the cultivation world. He didn't like the gray disciples of the academy being trampled on by others, and he didn't like the fact that many cultivators would lay their hands on their fellow apprentices for small benefits. As long as he killed those with ugly hearts, there wouldn't be so much dislike in the world. Whether a person is good or bad, it shouldn't be judged by another person. You like abundant life the most. If you kill them, life will also fade away. Life should be surging and beating and shouldn't be controlled by anyone. Feng Haoqin's voice was like a huge bell ringing in Mu Yu's mind. It was like thousands of mountains collapsing and thousands of tides surging, shaking the death in Mu Yu's body back. Master was right. Life shouldn't be controlled by anyone. Mu Yu's right eye darkened, and there seemed to be a brief moment of clarity. He struggled painfully, trying to pull himself back from the dark abyss. But soon his right eye was covered by the black aura again, and death was still shrouding his body. If you're a coward, then let me make the decision. Mu Yu's expression kept changing. His mind was already in a mess, but the death in his body that loved to kill seemed to have taken the initiative. He knew that the one who stopped Mu Yu was this old man in front of him. Only by killing him could Mu Yu completely break down. A black light shot out from his eye towards Feng Haoqin. He wanted to kill Feng Haoqin. He's my master. My master taught me how to be a person, taught me how to look at life and the world. I can't kill him. Mu Yu roared. At the critical moment, he closed his right eye, and the black light disappeared. Those who achieve great things don't care about trifles. He's just a stumbling block on your path to world domination. Watch how I reorganize life in the world. Mu Yu's right eye opened again, and a cold smile appeared on his face. He was like a reaper from hell, and the black light in his right eye continued to envelop Feng Haoqin. But his left eye kept struggling. The white light flickered, and he wanted to stop the black light. Feng Haoqin quietly watched the black light intertwining in the air. He knew that Mu Yu wanted to wake up and be himself, but the power in Mu Yu's body was too overbearing. The black light gradually swallowed the white light, and the majestic death aura rolled over. You dare to hurt him? I'll cripple you. A sea of fire appeared out of nowhere. It burned fiercely with the wind. The flames turned into a huge fire dragon, roaring violently, and quickly surrounded Feng Haoqin, blocking the black light. The black light was tainted by the raging flames, and it instantly dissipated like snow, unable to move forward. Flames represented the yang of the world and could burn all darkness. The overbearing black light was actually afraid of the raging flames. The red-clothed young man's figure slowly appeared in the air. His body was covered in explosive flames, and the air around him seemed to be distorted by the heat. He stared at Mu Yu angrily. His voice was filled with endless anger. Mu Yu's actions had challenged his bottom line. His appearance was accompanied by a monstrous flame, and in an instant, the surrounding trees were turned into ashes. The leaves in the air were also burned by the flame, and turned into black ashes that drifted away with the wind. When the red-clothed young man appeared, Feng Haoqin was not surprised at all. But Tian Ran found it inconceivable, because she recognized the red-clothed young man. This person was not from the gate of hell. The sword in the red-clothed young man's hand was covered in steaming flames. The flames were like the roar of a dragon, and also like the cry of a fire phoenix. They constantly changed into their respective ferocious beast forms, and then the sword was pointed straight at Mu Yu. Great wrath burns the heavens. Endless flames spread out, and the spiritual energy seemed to be ignited. The flames directly covered Mu Yu's entire body and kept burning him. Mu Yu's entire body was covered in green flames. He was in great pain, but the flames could not burn him to death. His skin was set on fire, but a new layer of skin would immediately appear, and it was endless, growing and multiplying endlessly. The raging flames burned Mu Yu's body, but Mu Yu's Mu Ling always had an endless amount of vitality flowing out of it, repairing the damaged skin. Mu Yu's body was roaring with anger. The monstrous flames could not burn him to death, and he could not get rid of the flames. But this repeated burning sensation made Mu Yu feel as if his entire body was alternating between ice and fire. He felt that he was on the verge of collapse. Mu Yu's consciousness was burned by the flames, and he finally woke up a lot. He tried his best to suppress the power in his body, but that power was too terrifying. Stop! You're not allowed to hurt him. In a daze, Muyu seemed to hear his master shouting at the red-clothed youth, not allowing the red-clothed youth to hurt Muyu. Muyu felt a burst of guilt in his heart. He almost killed his master, but his master was still protecting him. If that black light enveloped him, he knew that his master would never wake up again. Life and death could only happen once in the blink of an eye. The flames in the red-clothed youth's hand weakened a bit, and the flames that filled the sky faded away from Muyu's body. However, Muyu did not feel relaxed at all. Without the invasion of the flames, the death in his body began to become restless, as if it wanted to come out of Muyu's body to stir up trouble again. Muyu had been suppressing that power. He heard his master's words, and he could not let the death take the initiative. Life should be beautiful, and no one had the right to control the life and death of others. Unless there was a reason to kill, no one should take away a person's life. Go back, Muyu roared. His left eye suddenly opened, and a white light bloomed. An endless life force enveloped Muyu's body, and the white light repelled all the flames. He used the last of his strength to look at the red-clothed youth. He recognized this person, and it was this person who had controlled the Qingsong Taoist. He did not know why the red-clothed youth had appeared here, but he clearly remembered that the red-clothed youth was also looking for Jian Chun Feng. At this moment, the flames had already surrounded Feng Haochen, and he was unable to escape from the flames. The red-clothed youth seemed to have caught Feng Haochen. The ashes floating in the air suddenly turned green, and the leaves that filled the sky were reborn from the ashes. Muyu had finally taken the initiative, and he could not make another mistake. If possible, he wanted the red-clothed youth, so that his master would no longer be disturbed by the outside world. "Let go of my master!" Muyu barely squeezed out these words. He was already a spent arrow, and there was not much spiritual energy left in his body. He knew that he was no match for the red-clothed youth. Only the belief of protecting his master persisted, and he did not fall. He was too weak, so weak that he could not protect the people around him. "You are not worthy of calling him master." The red-clothed youth was very angry, and his eyes flashed with a ball of fire. He seemed to want to teach Muyu a lesson, but he forcibly restrained himself. Luo Shang quickly removed the flames. "He is your junior brother." Feng Haochen, who was surrounded by flames, shouted at the red-clothed youth. Feng Haochen looked at Muyu anxiously. He did not know how much consciousness Muyu had left, and he had to help Muyu suppress the death in his body. Otherwise, Muyu would be doomed. Luo Shang. Muyu heard these two words. He was Luo Shang. He was the second senior brother that Lan Ling mentioned. If he was the second senior brother, then Master should be safe, right? Muyu could no longer hold back. His consciousness gradually sank, and his mind fell into darkness. Chapter 126. A few white clouds floated in the clear sky, leisurely and carefree. Luochen Mountain was still quiet, but there seemed to be a different kind of joy in the silence. There were a few new faces in Luochen Mountain, but one familiar face was missing. That person was still in the darkness. Muyu's head was heavy and dizzy. He felt that he had finally landed on the ground, on a solid bed. His eyelids were heavy, and there was something pressing against his chest, but he still forced his eyes open. The first thing he saw was the strange white egg. It was quietly pressing against his chest, and there was a soft snoring sound. He looked around. This was his room. He had returned to Luochen Mountain. He had a headache. It was as if he had had a very long dream. In the dream, he had done everything he could. He patted his heavy head. Seeing that little handsome was about to roll off his chest, he hurriedly hugged it so that it wouldn't fall and hit his head again. He slowly sat up, but his arms weren't steady enough, and Little Handsome rolled off the bed. "You're hitting me again." Little Handsome floated up in exasperation and hit Muyu's head without any explanation. Muyu rubbed his head in pain. After being hit by Little Handsome, he became much more awake. "Will you die if you don't hit my head?" Muyu had the urge to strangle Little Handsome. "Will I die if you don't hit me?" Little Handsome retorted, not to be outdone. "I didn't do it on purpose." Muyu grabbed Little Handsome and pressed it down with all his strength. "You say that every time. Little Handsome quickly twisted Muyu's hand away and hit the back of Muyu's head again. Muyu grimaced in pain. He lifted the blanket, stood up, and kicked Little Handsome away. But Little Handsome's skin was too thick. It wasn't kicked away, but Muyu's foot was in pain. You're still alive and kicking. Looks like you're fine. Unknowingly, Feng Haochen had already pushed the door open and entered the room. Seeing the two clowns fighting on the bed, he smiled and felt as though the stone in his heart had been lifted. Master! Muyu held little Shuai tightly, raised his head, and greeted him excitedly. At this moment, he had a lot of questions to ask his master, but when he thought about how he had almost killed his master before he fell asleep, he felt a surge of guilt in his heart. Master, I'm sorry. Muyu let go of Xiao Shuai, walked in front of Feng Haochen, and said with his head lowered. He knew what had happened to him at that time. He had lost control and almost killed his master. If Luo Shang had not rushed over and blocked the strange energy in his body, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Feng Haochen rubbed Muyu's head and said, All right, it's fine as long as you're fine. You've saved all of us. The formation eye of the immortal confining prison has been transferred back to me. In the future, you must not be controlled by the power in your body. Master, why does my body have? Muyu did not know how the death in his body came about. He still felt that it was inconceivable that there was another dark side in his body that he had never noticed before. At that time, he only wanted power, so he let the death in his body resuscitation. Feng Haochen's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. He pondered for a while and said, I think it's time to explain some things to you guys. This involves the legend of the 3 continents. It's about 5 humans who had the ability of Yimon. They were called the Chosen One. You know that I had once defeated 5 Yimon spirit lords, right? Muyu nodded. He had always been in awe of this matter. The old man in front of him was actually the most powerful existence in the world. When all of humanity was about to be destroyed, Jianing Chunfeng single-handedly turned the tide and defeated 5 Yimon spirit lords, saving the entire human race. Muyu tried his best to imagine the scene of the apocalypse, but he felt that his imagination was limited. His master's brilliant heavenly might was not something that could be described with words. Actually, the 5 Yimon spirit lords were immortal existences. Although I killed them, they had the ability to enter the cycle of reincarnation. After 81 years, or even 100 years, they would be reincarnated into a Yimon's body and make a comeback. Feng Haochen said slowly, Master, you mean that I am a Yimon? Muyu was a little unable to accept this fact. Feng Haochen shook his head slightly. Reincarnation is a very vague existence. I have only seen a little bit of it. Spirit Lord Mu Yimon, the power in your body, had a mysterious ability called the blink of life and death. When this power was unleashed to the extreme, it would ensure that all the Yimon spirit lords that were killed would enter the cycle of reincarnation. At that time, I made a bold decision to interfere with the blink of life and death ability. I sent them into the cycle of reincarnation and then attached them to the few of you. Muyu was greatly shocked. That was how his ability had come about? Why us? Muyu asked, puzzled. This ability had brought him many conveniences, but at the same time, it had also brought him hidden dangers. Feng Haochen said with an apologetic expression, when Spirit Lords Yimon entered the cycle of reincarnation, they had been searching for suitable hosts. They found hosts at different times. The 5 of you should not have been able to survive for some reason, but your bodies were chosen by your respective Spirit Lords Yimon. They chose you, which is equivalent to giving you life. So, just from his point alone, they gave you life and also gave you extremely high cultivation talent. Muyu felt uncomfortable in his heart. They were humans who should not have existed in this world. They had only been lucky enough to become Spirit Lord Yumon's vessels and survive. But unfortunately, they had also chosen to live in the same body as Spirit Lord Yimon. I have been searching for the 5 of you, because the decision I made back then was equivalent to harming you. So, I had to find you and teach you how to be a human, how to not be controlled by the power in your bodies. I had originally planned to raise you into true humans, and use your human strength to suppress Spirit Lord Yaman, leaving the Yaman without a leader. Then, the human race would no longer have to fight against the Yaman from time to time, Feng Haochen said. Muyu felt that his body was somewhat unclean. A Yaman had entered his body, and he had obtained the abilities of that Yaman. But he was also a human. If he could not balance the relationship between the two, it would be very easy for the Yaman in his body to take control. They had survived because of Spirit Lord Yaman, but they had also shouldered a heavy responsibility. This was something that Muyu did not know how to view. If he had not been chosen by Spirit Lord Yaman, he would not even have had the chance to choose his own life. But since he had survived, he had to face the cruel reality. Then who are the other four? Muyu asked. I have only found 4 of them. I still do not know where the last one is. Even the dragon searching array was unable to find him. Feng Haochen shook his head. 4? You're saying that there are 4 people in our falling dust mountain who have the same abilities as me. The Yaman? Muyu's eyes widened. He had never known about this. Xiangnan, Chengyan, Luo Shang, and you. The Yaman lives in Xiangnan's body. Chengyan can control metal, Luo Shang can control fire, and you can control trees. Then what about Linger? Muyu asked impatiently. Linger is not. Linger has been with Luo Shang since she was young, so I brought her back. I have never told you this because I hope that you can protect your secrets well. If you can hide them from those close to you, then it will be even harder for others to detect your abnormalities. Your abilities will not be accepted by the human race. Everyone will think of ways to get rid of you, so you must keep your secrets well hidden, Feng Haochen said. Muyu thought of Luo Shang. Back then, it was Luo Shang who had used fire to save his master. No wonder Luo Shang had been so angry back then. Feng Haochen was his master. As the eldest senior brother, Chengyan seemed to have noticed this long ago. However, he and Xiangnan had kept their secrets well hidden. Even though he knew about Muyu's abilities, he did not reveal them to Muyu because their master forbade them from doing so. Back then, I used the dragon searching formation to find you in Flowing Water Village. I thought that you would like to play around in the village, so I decided to wait until you were old enough to cultivate. That day, I went to the academy to pick you up. Actually, I did something to the spirit testing stone. No matter what you did, it would still be gray. That was the only way I could bring you back, Feng Haochen said with a smile. When Muyu first saw that the spirit testing stone was gray, he was completely disheartened. Who would have thought that it was just a joke by the old man in front of him? After I found you, I taught you how to be a human. Use your willpower to fight against Spirit Lord Yumeng. When the time is right, I will find a way to completely seal away the sleeping spirit Lord Yumeng in your body. That way, he will no longer be able to affect your minds. Feng Haochen picked up little Shuai and knocked on the eggshell with his finger. Little Shuai groaned in dissatisfaction. Muyu felt that there was a heavy burden on his shoulders. He had heaven-defying abilities, but he could not use them as he wished. If he was not careful, he would be disturbed by Spirit Lord Yumeng in his body. It was really a headache. However, Muyu was not depressed because of this, nor did he feel that fate was unfair to them. He had not complained too much. Being alive was a wonderful thing. Muyu never believed in fate. No matter how the future developed, the choice was still in their hands. He knew that his master had taught them for so many years to let them have the right values, so that they would not be so easily influenced by the darkness in their bodies. Muyu could also imagine that his master did not teach them about formations because he was worried that one day, Muyu would go astray and stand on Yuman's side. Then, the method of humans using formations to restrain Yuman would be ineffective. Master, that immortal confinement prison. Will the people in Mayun Mountain Range really die? Will you die too? Muyu asked hesitantly. Feng Haochen nodded slightly. His expression was melancholy as he said, Sigh. The immortal confinement prison was probably the biggest mistake I made back then. Back then, I made an agreement with the people of the Third Palace that I would use my own cultivation as the array foundation of the immortal confinement prison and my entire body as the array core of the immortal confinement prison. This was to trap all of Yuman in Mayun Mountain Range. They would help me rescue all of the humans in Mayun Mountain Range. However, after I set up the mortal confinement prison, they only allowed those who were able to evacuate from Mayan mountain range to leave. Those who were unable to leave were left alone. Muyu frowned. Did the people of the third palace go back on their word? Although there are few people in Mayan mountain range, there are still millions of them. They felt that it was not worth it to spend a huge amount of effort to rescue these people with low cultivation, so they went back on their word. Anger flashed across Feng Haochen's face. He was willing to sacrifice his own cultivation in order to prevent the third palace from being disturbed by Yumon. However, the third palace did not abide by their promise and did not want to save so many people. Master, can't you remove the immortal confinement prison? Mui was also furious. How could this so-called third palace be so shameless? Feng Haochen shook his head and said, "The heaven and earth array is already very heaven-defying. At that time, my cultivation was already very high and I could feel the laws of heaven and earth. I used my entire life's cultivation as the price. Once it was set up, it was very difficult to reverse it. There was no way to reverse it unless I died. However, the heaven and earth array would not let the array foundation die. Even if the ghost general was used to replace it, the heaven and earth array would discover it one day. It would destroy the ghost general and revive me, transferring it to me. Then is there really no way to save the people in Mayan Mountain Range? Is there really no way to save Master?" Muyu asked. "There is a way, but it is too harsh. Although the heaven and earth formation is very difficult to reverse, as long as I have my original cultivation, I can contend with the heaven and earth formation and break this formation. However, it is very difficult to recover my cultivation. That kind of thing is very difficult to do. Of course, there is another way, and that is to kill the third palace's array guardian." Feng Haochen said, "The third palace's array guardian? The third palace is a mysterious existence. It is in charge of all the cultivators in the third palace. It has set up the 8 factions. As for the exact location of the third palace, even I am not sure. They have always been floating around. The third palace's array guardian is a person who is proficient in all the arrays in the world. Back then, he was the one who found me and asked me to set up the immortal confining prison. I agreed to his request because he promised me that he would save everyone in Mayan Mountain Range. Unfortunately, he did not fulfill his promise. The heaven and earth array uses my cultivation as the array foundation, but the core of the entire heaven and earth array is actually him. As long as he is killed, the immortal confining prison will disappear on its own," Feng Haochen said. "Master, I will kill him." Muyu clenched his fists. The third palace's array guardian was a person who did not keep his promises. He caused Master to be reduced from a true god revered by thousands of people to a weak Jindan period cultivator. He even sacrificed the lives of millions of people in Mayan Mountain Range. He deserved to die. He deserves to die. However, even if his cultivation is not as good as mine back then, he is still not someone you can think of now. If you want to save the millions of people in Mayan Mountain Range, you have to reach my cultivation in the past. Feng Haochen sat on the chair and said with a smile, "Reach the cultivation of a true god." Chapter 127. About 8 years later, my cultivation will fall to the foundation establishment stage. At that time, nascent soul stage cultivators will no longer be able to enter the Mayan Mountain Range. Only cultivators from the Jindan period can exist in the Mayan Mountain Range, and no one will be able to break through to the Jindan period. The spirit chi here is becoming more and more scarce. You need to leave the Mayan Mountain Range. Luo Shang will take you away." Feng Haochen said gently. Little Shuai seemed to have fallen asleep in his arms. He gently stroked the strange egg and smiled. "You name it Little Shuai, right? This guy is a very mysterious existence." "Master, how did Little Shuai come about?" Muyu became angry when he thought about how this strange egg always liked to smash his head. Feng Haochen smiled and said, "You don't have to care about how this little guy came about. It seems to like following you. You can take it with you in the future." Muyu cursed in his heart. He didn't want to be an old hen that hatched eggs. However, out of respect for his master, he still didn't say it out loud. "Master, leave the Mayan Mountain Range with us." Muyu said. Feng Haochen shook his head. It's too dangerous for me in the third continent. The people from the Gate of Hell will always be watching me. I'm safest here. The millions of lives in the Moyun Mountain Range are in danger because of me. I can't go against my conscience and leave here. After 8 years, my cultivation will fall faster and faster. It will only take a year to fall from the foundation establishment stage to the Qi refinement stage, and it will only take a month to fall from the Qi refinement stage to immortal. Then my life will come to an end, and all the people in the Moyun Mountain Range will die. Muyu was silent in his heart. His master had always been very calm in the face of death, but his master did not want to see the people of the Moyun Mountain Range die with him. He had placed all his hopes on Muyu and the others. They had to kill the people of the third layer palace within 8 years, or find a way to restore his cultivation. No matter which option it was, 8 years was too short. Master, no matter what, we will work hard, Muyu said firmly. He didn't know what kind of existence the third palace was, and he didn't know what the third continent was. He was too insignificant now. Many people in the third continent could kill him. It's too early to say that. Your growth in the past few months has surprised me, Feng Haochen said with a smile. Muyu had relied on Elder Sun's spirit-gathering array to enter the Jindan period. He should already know this. After all, there was one more person in Luochen Mountain. His master would definitely ask about it. Muyu asked curiously, Master, have you been staying in Longhu Gorge for the past few months? Feng Haochen nodded helplessly. In order to protect myself, I set up a warning for the Heaven and Earth Array. When there was danger, I would be teleported to the Dragon Tiger Gorge. The Dragon Tiger Gorge was considered a very secluded place in the Moyun Mountain Range. It could also prevent others from searching. I was forcefully teleported there. My cultivation fell too much, so I couldn't get out. So I didn't have time to tell you. Then you can ask Su Yi of Dragon Tiger Gorge to tell us. Muyu complained. All of them thought that Feng Haochen had been captured by the people from the Gate of Hell. They were all worried and afraid. I think it's better not to tell you. This concerns the lives of everyone in the Moyun Mountain Range. They will definitely target you in the end. However, the Luochen Mountains Array is enough to protect you, Feng Haochen said with a smile. Big brother Muyu, you can sleep. You've slept for a month. Tian Ran suddenly ran in. She looked at Muyu happily. Tian Ran had been taking care of Muyu for the past month, because Muyu had used his ability to save her in the blink of an eye before he lost control. She was still very grateful to Muyu. I slept for a month? How can I sleep so much? Muyu scratched his head in embarrassment. He had no idea about this at all. At first, he suspected that Tian Ran and Gue Xianyue were in cahoots. He didn't expect that she would sacrifice herself to save her master. Tian Ran, why did you leave us behind at the mass burial valley? Muyu asked. Tian Ran stuck out her tongue. I didn't want you to die. Your cultivation was too weak, so I followed you. Later, I realized that I was overthinking things. Muyu was speechless. This girl left without saying a word. In the end, the eccentric little handsome was even faster than Gue Xianyue and Tian Ran. Senior, the Qingsong Taoist has come to visit. I'm here to inform you. Tian Ran blinked and looked at Feng Haochen with reverence. Let's go and see him. Feng Haochen looked at Tian Ran with a smile. He didn't know what to say to this naive girl. He didn't know how Miao Yuyin had brainwashed this girl. He was very surprised that Tian Ran would sacrifice herself to save him that day. After returning to Luochen Mountain, she had been treating Feng Haochen with a respectful attitude for the past month. The Qingsong Taoist was sitting in the hall. Elder Sun poured a cup of tea for him. When he saw the Green Pine Taoist, his expression was very awkward. Elder Sun and the Green Pine Taoist were from the same era. However, the Green Pine Taoist's talent was extraordinary, and he became an existence revered by the world. Now, his cultivation had reached the nascent soul realm, and he had become a legend. Elder Sun, on the other hand, was untalented and became a deacon of the academy founded by the Qingsong Taoist. In front of the Qingsong Taoist, he was just a lowly servant. Elder Sun smiled awkwardly. Greetings, Supremacy. The Qingsong Taoist was a little uneasy. He naturally knew Elder Sun. When he went to the academy to do things, Elder Sun was the one who personally served him. He didn't expect to see the former deacon's son in the Luochen sect. This made him a little nervous. Luo Shang was the red-clothed young man behind the Qingsong Taoist. It was also Luo Shang who asked the Qingsong Taoist to come here today. Feng Haochen had already walked in, and when Elder Sun saw him, he heaved a sigh of relief. Elder Sun felt very depressed being in the same room as the Qingsong Taoist. Sect Master. When Elder Sun saw Feng Haochen step into the hall, he hurriedly greeted him respectfully. Master, the Qingsong supremacy is here. What do you think? Elder Sun was a little worried. He knew that Feng Haochen was only a cultivator from the Jindan period. The Qingsong Taoist, on the other hand, had already achieved the nascent soul true body. He was an existence who meant what he said. Elder Sun thought that the Qingsong Taoist had come here to force Feng Haochen to submit to the Qingsong school. This made him feel a little uneasy. Don't worry. Come with me. Feng Haochen knew what Elder Sun was worried about. He patted Elder Sun's shoulder, indicating that he didn't need to worry. The Qingsong Taoist suddenly stood up and turned to face Feng Haochen. Elder Sun was shocked, thinking that he was going to attack him. However, the Qingsong Taoist suddenly bent his knees and knelt in front of Feng Haochen. He respectfully kowtowed and said, Qingsong Taoist greets Master. Huh? Elder Sun felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He was stunned on the spot. He rubbed his eyes to make sure that his eyes weren't playing tricks on him. The Qingsong Taoist, who is currently supreme in the cultivation world, had an incomparable status. However, this emperor of the cultivation world was actually kneeling in front of Feng Haochen, the sect master of the Falling Dust sect, who was the most despised person in the cultivation world, and whose cultivation was only from the Jindan period. This wasn't a dream, right? Feng Haochen smiled slightly. He walked to the seat of honor and sat down. Sect master, this is... It took Elder Sun a long time to recover from his shock. He carefully walked around the Qingsong Taoist and stood beside Feng Haochen. He was clearly frightened. This was too inconceivable. Why was the Qingsong Taoist kneeling on the ground? Was he really the supremacy who could summon the wind and summon the rain in the cultivation world? Why is he kneeling? Mu Yu and Tian carried an egg and ran over casually. They found a place to sit and even pulled Elder Sun to the side to sit down. In the entire hall, only the Qingsong Taoist was kneeling. If the cultivation world knew about this, they would probably go crazy. Their almighty emperor was actually kneeling before the weak sect master of the Falling Dust sect? Get up, Feng Haochen said. Qingsong wouldn't dare. However, the Qingsong Taoist didn't get up. He remained kneeling. He already knew that Feng Haochen was the red-clothed young man's master. To be able to cultivate such an outstanding disciple, the Falling Dust sect was definitely not as weak as it seemed. Feng Haochen had always kept a low profile. He didn't expect him to be a hidden expert. Master Luo Shang asked Qingsong to come greet the lords of the Falling Dust sect. Master Luo Shang said that Qingsong must be extremely respectful in front of the lords and consider myself a servant. Qingsong wouldn't dare disobey. Luo Shang had fed the Qingsong Taoist a slave pill. No matter what he said, the Qingsong Taoist didn't dare to disobey. He glanced at Elder Sun, who was sitting to the side, and felt a wave of awkwardness. He finally understood how Elder Sun felt when he was kneeling in front of him. Every dog had its day. In the past, he was sitting while Elder Sun was kneeling. Now, he was kneeling while Elder Sun was sitting. This matter was a little strange. Elder Sun was also a member of the Falling Dust sect. This meant that the servant who used to bow to him was now his master. Elder Sun was also in disbelief. The revered Qingsong Taoist had become their servant? He couldn't sit still. He didn't think that after he had unintentionally joined the Falling Dust sect, everything would suddenly change so drastically. The once unreachable pine tree Taoist was now kneeling before them. Who would believe this if he told them about it? He hated the Academy's rules. The Academy's rules were originally set by the Qingsong Taoist. Now that the Qingsong Taoist was kneeling in front of him, Elder Sun could finally vent his anger. This was all because Elder Sun had once stood up for Mu Yu, who was a gray disciple, out of his conscience. However, thanks to Mu Yu, his fate had been rewritten. His status had suddenly become higher than the revered Qing Song Taoist. For a moment, Elder Sun felt a little uneasy. Nonsense. Where's Luo Shang? Feng Haochen frowned. Master, I'm here. Before Elder Sun could find him, Luo Shang walked in. He was still dressed in a flame-red robe and was very eye-catching. He glanced at the pine tree Taoist and sat down by himself. Mu Yu stared at Luo Shang. This wasn't the first time he had seen Luo Shang. He had seen him twice when he was at Qing Song School. However, he didn't know that this guy was his second senior brother at that time. He thought that he was going to harm Jianing and Chen Feng. Now that he thought about it, Luo Shang had found the Qing Song Taoist and used the slave pill to control the Qing Song Taoist in order to find someone who could contend with perfected Jiuhua and prevent Gue Xianyue from truly unifying the entire Mayan mountain range. If it weren't for him, the Qing Song School would have been annexed by the Jiuhua School. The Qing Song Taoist wouldn't have been able to enter the nascent soul stage and would even have been persecuted by perfected Jiuhua. Luo Shang had done all this to prevent Gue Xianyue from finding Jianing and Chen Feng. Chapter 128. Is this how you treat the Qing Song Taoist? Feng Haochen frowned. He asked the Qing Song Taoist to get up, but the Qing Song Taoist did not dare to do so. Luo Shang must have ordered the Qing Song Taoist to kneel in front of Feng Haochen. Master, Qing Song is the person with the highest cultivation in the Moyun mountain range. I control him for your safety. When we are not around, it will be easier for you to have a nascent soul servant, Luo Shang said calmly. At that time, he did not know where the people from the Gate of Hell were in the Moyun mountain range. He had been searching for Gue Xuanyue's whereabouts, and Gue Xianyue had been paying attention to his movements. He knew that his master was Jian Ying and Chen Feng, so he did not dare to return to the Luochen mountain for fear of arousing Gue Xuanyue's suspicion. It was not until Yu Meng's news spread that he discovered the relationship between Gue Xianyue and perfected Jiuhua. He knew that Gue Xianyue would definitely kill the Qing Song Taoist or subdue the Qing Song Taoist and control the entire Moyun mountain range. Because of the relationship between Qing Yin and Qing Mei, he could only choose to protect the Qing Song Taoist. However, there were many things that he could not explain to the Qing Song Taoist. If he could not explain it clearly, he would not be able to make the Qing Song Taoist listen to him. Therefore, he simply used the slave pill to control the Qing Song Taoist. It was simple, violent, and effective. He did not have to worry about the Qing Song Taoist being controlled by Gue Xianyue. Using the Qing Song Taoist's influence, he could also secretly sabotage Gue Xuanyue's plan. Master, you want to help me improve my cultivation? It is my duty to serve you, the Qing Song Taoist said quickly. Of course, he did not mean this. It was the effect of the slave pill that made him say this. It was worse than death for him to become the servant of these juniors. All right, Qing Song, get up first. Luo Shang, let him get up. Feng Haochen was also helpless. When he found that the Qing Song Taoist did not dare to get up, he scolded Luo Shang. What are you thinking? Are you still so reckless after so many years? Don't you know the relationship between Qing Mei and Qing Yin? Luo Shang did not mind being scolded by Feng Haochen, as he suddenly laughed. This was the first time that the Qing Song Taoist had seen Luo Shang smile. In the past, Luo Shang had always looked mysterious and unfathomable. He could not see through him at all. Master, I didn't stop senior brother from having an affair with Qing Song's daughter that night. Didn't I encourage Qing Song Taoist to come here to propose marriage? Luo Shang kicked the Qing Song Taoist. Only then did the Qing Song Taoist submissively stand up. What are you talking about? Cheng Yin walked in angrily and knocked on Luo Shang's head. He didn't show any mercy just because Luo Shang was in the nascent soul stage. He already knew that his junior brother had taken in his future father-in-law as a servant. This was very awkward. Luckily, Qing Mei didn't come today. Otherwise, she would definitely fall out with him. Senior brother, I've helped you so much. In the future, you don't have to worry about father-in-law making things difficult for you. Isn't this good? Moreover, if I didn't control the Qingsong Taoist first, he would have died in the hands of the gate of hell. Luo Shang's personality was very open. He didn't get angry after being knocked by Cheng Yan. However, what he said was the truth. Gui Xianyue was the son of Taoist Jihua. He would definitely help his father unify the cultivation world. At that time, the Qingsong Taoist would probably be the first person to be eliminated. The Qingsong Taoist looked at Cheng Yan awkwardly. Even if he was beaten to death, he would not be willing to kneel 3 times and kowtow 9 times in front of his son-in-law. Cheng Yan stood in front of the Qingsong Taoist and said sincerely, Senior Qingsong, I'm sorry. My junior brother really didn't mean that. Qingmei and I are in love with each other. I just want to get your approval openly. I don't want you to be forced to agree. After all, she is your daughter. You have to make the decision for her. This was even more interesting. The Qingsong Taoist didn't know what to say at this moment. He was forced to become Qing Yan's servant. However, he was also Qing Yan's father-in-law. He didn't know what to say to get Luo Shang's approval. For a moment, he smiled awkwardly. He didn't know what to say. Luo Shang, where did you get the slave pill? Feng Haochen slapped his forehead helplessly. Out of all the disciples, only Qing Yan, Lan Ling and Xiang Nan were obedient. The 2 troublemakers aside, Luo Shang didn't like to follow the rules. Mu Yu also liked to stir up trouble. I got it from a senior from the Pill Cauldron sect. Luo Shang chuckled. He said it was you who created it. I don't care about that for now. You know what to do. Feng Haochen said. I know. Luo Shang unceremoniously grabbed the Qingsong Taoist collar. The Qingsong Taoist was scared out of his wits. Why did it seem like he was going to be beaten up for no reason? However, Luo Shang only warned him rudely. You don't have to care about others in the future, but you can't disobey my master's orders. Your nascent soul cultivation base was given to you by me. You have to treat my master as your master in your heart. If my master loses even a single strand of hair, I don't care whose father-in-law you are. I will whip you to death. I wouldn't dare. Your master is my master. I will remember this. The Qingsong Taoist sighed in relief. Since Luo Shang had given this order, it meant that he didn't have to be the servant of other juniors. He hurriedly knelt down respectfully and kowtowed to Feng Haochen. Sir, Qingsong definitely wouldn't dare to disobey your wishes. If there's anything you need, please instruct me. What else can there be? Of course, it's to be my senior brother's father-in-law. Luo Shang interrupted. Yes. Qingmei and Qing Yan are a match made in heaven. Qingsong naturally wouldn't be the one to break them up. The Qingsong Taoist actually didn't oppose this marriage. Qing Yan's talent was already heaven-defying. His junior brother's cultivation was also terrifying. Their master wasn't simple either. If Qingmei married Qing Yan, she naturally wouldn't be wronged in the future. Thank you, Senior Qingsong. Qing Yan was overjoyed. If he had known that the red-clothed youth controlling the Qingsong Taoist was his junior brother when he was at Qingsong school, he wouldn't have rejected Qingmei. The reason why Luo Shang didn't appear in front of them at that time was because Luo Shang wasn't sure who the person behind the gate of hell was. He couldn't rashly reveal his identity, which was why he made such a big mistake. You're still calling me senior? Senior brother, are you pretending to be stupid? Luo Shang muttered. Do you know that when Qingmei went back last time, she almost cried her eyes out? Even my heart ached for her. Senior brother, you're really heartless. Isn't it because you're pretending to be mysterious? Mu Yu doesn't know you and thinks you're the bad guy. Qing Yan glared at Luo Shang, then respectfully said to the Qingsong Taoist, Thank you, father-in-law. Qingsong Taoist's smile became smoother. His daughter's marriage to Qing Yan was not too unjust. Right, Qingsong Taoist, how is perfected Jihua doing now? Mu Yu asked. They didn't pay attention to Gui Xianyue back then and seemed to have let him escape. He only killed Gui Xuanyue's twins. If possible, he wanted to get rid of him completely. Qingsong Taoist suddenly said proudly, Now, there is no more Jihua school in the cultivation world. They all belong to our Song school. Oh no, they all belong to Sir Feng. Song Taoist quickly changed his words. What happened? Feng Haochen asked. Taoist master Jiu Hua suddenly disappeared a month ago. Even his subordinate, Duke Red Dragon, disappeared. Once immortal Jiu Hua went missing, Jiu Hua sect fell apart, and I took all of them under my wing. As long as you say the word, even Song sect is willing to serve you. Song Taoist said respectfully. From now on, only Song school was left in Moyun Mountain Range. If the falling dust sect's people were not included, Song Taoist was the god of Moyun Mountain Range. Feng Haochen had always been aloof from worldly affairs, so as long as he took good care of the true god behind him, Song Taoist could rightfully become the emperor of Moyun Mountain Range. This had always been Song Taoist's ambition for many years. He wanted to monopolize Moyun Mountain Range. This was what he wanted. He ran fast, or else I would have taught him a lesson. Luo Shang snorted. They will make a comeback. Muyu knew that he had left behind a source of trouble. Perfected Zhouhua and Gue Xianyue must have escaped Moyun Mountain Range and sought refuge with Gue Xuanyue's master. Duke Red Dragon knew the location of Ghost Island and had also left Moyun Mountain Range. Gue Xuanyue's master would definitely come back. It's fine. Song has taken the slave pill. They will not be able to control Song. I will also set up some formations to restrict the gate of Hell's movements. Feng Haochen knew what Muyu was worried about. If Gue Xianyue came back, he would definitely attack Song Taoist first. Song Taoist's expression was very helpless. He had become a commodity that all the lords fought over. Everyone seemed to like controlling him and ordering him around like a servant. Senior brother can't wait any longer. Master, quickly discuss senior brother's marriage with Song Taoist. Come out. Luo Shang suddenly grabbed Muyu, and without waiting for Muyu's consent, he took him away from this place. What do you want? On Luo Chung Cliff, Luo Shang let go of his hand. Perhaps it was because of Lan Ling. Muyu did not like this second senior brother who came out of nowhere. If Master did not stop me, I would have slapped you to death. Why are you asking me? Luo Shang said bluntly. He had a bad temper and would never show mercy to those who hurt the people he cared about. Muyu knew that he was in the wrong, so he did not refute. If his master really died in his hands, he would never forgive himself. Qingyan is the most familiar with controlling the power of Yumon in his body. He is more mature and calm. Xiangnan is more honest and does not get angry easily. Nothing will happen to him. You're like an idiot blinking your eyes. Will it kill you to control yourself? Luo Shang scolded. He did not have a good impression of Muyu. Damn it, you're the idiot. I want to duel with you. Muyu rolled up his sleeves and threw Little Handsome in his arms. It had to be said that sometimes it was very convenient to hold an egg in one's arms. It was quite convenient to use it as a weapon. He did not care whether Luo Shang was in the nascent soul stage or not. This guy abandoned Lan Ling, for so many years before running back. He was despised by Lan Ling, for no reason. Just this alone was intolerable. Duel my ass. Xiao Shuai shouted again. Master told me that you were as suitable for cultivation as I am. Do you know what that means? Luo Shang was not angry. He grabbed Little Handsome and threw him back. I really don't want to have anything to do with you. Muyu muttered and caught Little Handsome. I control fire, so my temper is very unstable. You control trees, which symbolize life and are full of enthusiasm. You are similar to me, so if the two of us do not cultivate our own heart, it is easy to be controlled by the things in our bodies. I have already found a way to suppress it. You better do it honestly, understand? Luo Shang said. What should we do? Muyu frowned. Chengyan and Xiang Nan can easily suppress it without doing anything. I only managed to do it when I cultivated the falling dust cultivation method to the 6th level. Don't you know how to calm your heart? Luo Shang said. You don't have to tell me that. Muyu turned his head away. After a while, he asked, Why did you leave back then? Luo Shang snorted and then said, Because I was afraid that I would hurt them if I could not suppress it. Okay, tell me honestly, did you hurt others back then too? Then you still have the nerve to talk about me? Let me think, you hurt Ling right? Muyu jumped up and pointed at Luo Shang's nose. It's none of your business. Luo Shang blocked Muyu's hand very coldly. He did not deny it and said, Ling did not blame me, but I could not forgive myself, so I left the Moyun mountain range. Now that I have the ability to protect her, I came back to pick her up. Did she agree to go with you? Muyu felt a little uncomfortable. Now that his second senior brother had returned, it was even more impossible for Ling to accept him in her heart. Not only her, but Xiang Nan, Qingyan, his sweetheart, and of course you also have to leave this place with me. The spirit chi outside the Moyun mountain range is richer than here. You can improve your cultivation faster there. As for those two little fellows, I will come back when they can cultivate, Luo Shang said. Chapter 129. Qingyan's wedding was held at Qingsong School. Now, everyone knew that as the only nascent soul cultivator in the Moyun mountain range, the Qingsong Taoist was extremely honorable. Everyone bowed down to him. His daughter's wedding was naturally a big event that shook the entire cultivation world. The most important people of every sect were dressed up to attend Qingmei's wedding. To everyone's surprise, the groom turned out to be Qingyan, a nobody from the Luochen sect. Why would the Qingsong Taoist condescend to marry his daughter to a shabby sect that everyone looked down on? This matter had been bothering everyone. When everyone saw how polite the Qingsong Taoist was to Feng Haochen at the wedding, they were so shocked that their eyes almost fell out of their sockets. The Qingsong Taoist was the god of the Moyun mountain range. No matter who his daughter married, everyone would have to serve her like a princess. Logically speaking, Feng Haochen should be flattered and grateful to the Qingsong Taoist for marrying into a poor sect like the Luochen sect. However, the truth was that the Qingsong Taoist almost never left Feng Haochen's sight. He had to discuss everything with Feng Haochen. Although the Qingsong Taoist tried his best to hide his respectful expression, those who paid attention noticed that the smile on his face was more like he was trying to curry favor with Feng Haochen. How is this possible? A nascent soul cultivator trying to curry favor with a ridiculous sect leader during the Jindan period? Everyone knew that they were overthinking. How could a nascent soul cultivator curry favor with someone during the Jindan period? It was probably because the Qingsong Taoist was happy that his daughter was getting married and wanted to get close to his in-laws. No one would think otherwise. After all, who would have thought that the nascent soul Qingsong Taoist actually dared not go against the Jindan period Feng Haochen's words at all? Fortunately, Feng Haochen was more easygoing. Almost everything was handled by the Green Pine Taoist himself. The decorations, firecrackers, and all kinds of etiquette, the Green Pine sect was bustling with noise. Sister, hurry up. This suckling pig is delicious. Brother, don't rush. Let me saw off one of the legs of this chair first. Then what should I do? Then what should I do? Xiao Shui yelled. Kong Kong and Meow Meow sewed its forelimbs with cloth. Then the two of them used ink to draw two eyes, one big and one small, on the eggshell for Xiao Shui. They even drew one eyebrow, making it look neither fish nor fowl. You're responsible for scaring people. If the students of Qingsong School dare to come here, you can go and scare them to death. The two troublemakers brought Xiao Shui around Qingsong School to cause trouble. However, the Qingsong Taoist had ordered all the disciples not to neglect the people of the Luochen sect. Therefore, no one cared about the two little guys and the egg when they made a mess of the wedding. From time to time, the chairs would fall right after someone sat down. Even the cultivators couldn't prevent this kind of accident. Needless to say, it was embarrassing. First bow to heaven and earth. Marriage was a major event, and Qingsong Taoist daughter's wedding was of the utmost importance. Therefore, secular etiquette was unavoidable. Their wedding was held in Qingsong School's magnificent meeting hall. This meeting hall, which was like an imperial palace, was decorated with jubilation and lacked a trace of its usual solemnity. The Qingsong Taoist usually sat on the high seat of honor in the meeting hall. However, today there were two seats. Feng Haochen sat side by side with him. Second, bow to your parents. Feng Haoqian's clothes were finally no longer patched up. He looked much more gorgeous and noble. His beard was neatly combed, and his hair was tied up meticulously. The hairpin was made of green jade, firmly holding the white Taoist crown in place. His clothes were a white robe with golden edges. He wore a pair of black and gold boots. He looked energetic and radiant, as if he was dozens of years younger. These were all picked out for him by Lan Ling, and Tian Ran. Perhaps even Jian Ying and Chun Feng didn't dress so solemnly in the past. At first, Feng Haoqian felt quite awkward. Before leaving, he wanted to secretly change back into his simple clothes. However, he couldn't persuade his two daughters. In the end, he had no choice but to wear this noble Taoist robe to the wedding. The Qingsong Taoist didn't need to be mentioned. Every move he made was like a king, causing people to revere him. No matter what clothes he wore, no one dared to look down on him. Today, he wore his grandest clothes. He couldn't be casual about marrying off his daughter. Naturally, he had to dress up grandly. Husband and wife bow to each other. Qingyan wore a red robe. He was full of heroic spirit and had a dignified appearance. He was truly a dragon among men. His cultivation during the Jindan period stunned many guests. It also made everyone understand why he was qualified to marry the Qingsong Taoist daughter. At such a young age, his cultivation was already higher than many people present. He was even better than Bai Liang. If he wasn't qualified to marry Qingmei, then who was? Qingmei wore a light veil. There was a trace of elegance in the haze. She was like a fairy, causing people's imagination to run wild. She had a faint smile on her face. She was shy and lovely. She was also very happy in her heart. She was once inexplicably rejected by Qingyan. She still didn't understand the reason. However, one day, her father brought Qingyan over. She was about to scold Qingyan for being a coward when Qingyan proposed to marry her. At that time, she didn't even know how she agreed. She seemed to have forgotten about Qingyan's heartlessness in the past. She was surrounded by an indescribable happiness. Send them to the bridal chamber. The person presiding over the wedding was Elder Sun. Elder Sun was a public figure in the cultivation world. Basically, everyone in the cultivation world knew him. When everyone saw that it was a gray disciple presiding over the wedding, they felt a little strange. They didn't understand why the Qingsong Taoist would find a lowly person to preside over such a grand event. However, when the Qingsong Taoist announced that Elder Sun was the guest elder of the Qingsong school, they were so shocked that their jaws dropped. How could Elder Sun, who was only at the qi refining stage, be treated so politely by the Qingsong Taoist? When Elder Sun heard the Qingsong Taoist announcement, he was so excited that he almost cried. He didn't expect that he would be so famous one day. He even became the guest elder of the Qingsong school. Everyone who attended the wedding was of noble status. They were all important figures in their respective sections. In the past, he used to look up to them, but now his status suddenly overshadowed so many people. It was like a dream. Elder Sun sighed with emotion. Of course, it was Muyu who asked the Qingsong Taoist to do this. Muyu had always been grateful to Elder Sun. Whether it was the protection of the school or the fortune given by the soul-devouring wolf, he wanted to repay Elder Sun. All his life, Elder Sun had hoped to catch the eye of a certain sex elder, become a follower of a certain sex elder, and step into the ranks of cultivators. Now, due to a free combination of factors, he had actually become an elder of the Pine Tree sect. The Qingsong Taoist naturally didn't object. Elder Sun was one of the people who knew his background. He was also a member of the Luochen sect. He couldn't refuse. Fortunately, Elder Sun used to be a deacon of the school. He was diligent and efficient. Therefore, Qingsong Taoist trusted him to preside over the wedding. Luo Shang and Lan Ling were both very active. Ever since Luo Shang came back, Lan Ling became cheerful and cheerful. She was very excited that her second senior brother, who had been worried about her for several years, finally came back and promised to never be separated from her again. Some people were excited, while others were depressed. For the first time, Muyu didn't disturb his eldest senior brother in the bridal room. He sat on the chair and stared at Lan Ling Er's back in a daze. Luo Shang kept holding Lan Ling Er's hand, and Lan Ling it didn't let go. Normally, if Muyu touched her, he would have been kicked to the sky. I really want to chop off that guy's hand. Muyu gloomily gestured with Luo Shang's hand. In his mind, he thought of 108 ways to beat Luo Shang up. Although he couldn't do it, it was still very satisfying to think about it. You're having one-sided love again. Tian Ran walked over and scratched Muyu's nose and said with a smile. She had just let Qing Yin and Qing Mei step on the flying sword. Their bodies were lying horizontally in the air. Qing Yin's feet were on the left, and Qing Mei's feet were on the right. They were kissing up and down. That posture was so beautiful that it won a round of applause. I'm not. Muyu continued to gesture. His eyes didn't leave Lan Ling and Luo Shang's hands. Big brother Muyu, I've been observing you for several days. Ever since you woke up, you looked like you wanted to eat Luo Shang. You look so cute when you're jealous. Tian Ran stood up and watched as Qing Yin and Qing Mei were asked by Xiang Nan to kiss in another posture. This posture was too difficult. It required the two of them to form a heart shape in the air. Their faces were red, and their posture was strange. Everyone was laughing while holding their stomachs. How is Luo Shang jealous? He's clearly a pile of sh*t, Muyu muttered angrily. Then you look so cute when you eat sh*t. Tian Ran clapped. Muyu rolled his eyes. He didn't want to bother with Tian Ran anymore. Are you really not going to explain it to senior sister Ling? Tian Ran sat beside Muyu. She held her chin and asked, How should I explain it? Is it still your tree thrusting technique? I've already been kicked once. Don't do it a second time. Muyu actually believed the tree thrusting technique proposed by the simple-minded Tian Ran. He even wondered if his head had been kicked by a donkey. You like senior sister Ling, but she doesn't know. If she doesn't know, then why would she like you? Tian Ran said. Muyu felt that Tian Ran was right, but he also felt that something was wrong. But if she liked him, she would have shown it long ago. After Luo Shang returned, Lan Ling Er's behavior clearly made Muyu realize that he had no place in Ling Er's heart. Even if he did, he would only exist as a junior brother who always liked to badmouth his second senior brother. Muyu was still feeling depressed when Tian Ran suddenly pulled Lan Ling over. Senior sister Ling, Muyu has something to say to you. Tian Ran winked at Muyu behind Lan Ling. She motioned for Muyu to quickly tell her the matter. What's the matter? Lan Ling Er's face was full of smiles. Perhaps because of her eldest senior brother's marriage, her attitude was very friendly. Muyu was a little flustered. He wasn't ready to say anything when Tian Ran pulled him over. He hesitated for a moment, then smiled and said, Ling's eldest senior brother is married. Have you thought about who you will marry in the future? Of course it's second senior brother, but it's too early to say. Lan Ling glanced at Luo Shang, who was holding a wine cup and pouring wine for Qing Yin. Smack! Chapter 130. Don't cry, big brother Muyu, don't cry. Tian Ran patted Muyu, who was lying on her shoulder. I'm not crying. Muyu really wasn't crying. He wasn't someone who cried easily. He just wanted to lie down for a while and find someone to lean on, but Tian Ran thought he was going to cry and kept comforting him. It's okay, my senior sister said it's not a crime for a man to cry. Tian Ran blinked innocently. What nonsense are you talking about? Muyu muttered, but he still lay on Tian Ran's shoulder. At this time, having a shoulder to lean on made him feel better. Big brother Muyu, you have to be strong. The future is still beautiful. We have to look forward. The future is still bright. Life is always thriving. There are plenty of fish in the sea. Rabbits don't eat the grass near their burrows. When my senior sister was heartbroken, don't talk. Oh, Muyu lay down for a while. Thinking that this was his senior brother's wedding, it wasn't good for him to be sad. He quickly adjusted his mood and then went to the bridal room with Tian Ran with a smile. When you guys get married, I'll definitely make you suffer worse than my senior brother. Muyu didn't know if this was a blessing for Luo Shang and Lan Ling. He watched as Qing Yin and Qing Mei were hanging in the air, swaying around just to be able to touch each other. Luo Shang even sealed their cultivation, making it impossible for them to cheat. 2 months passed quickly, and everything was settled. "You're really not coming with us?" Lan Linger asked. Muyu nodded. "You guys go first. I still want to accompany my master. I'll go with Tian Ran." He really wanted to accompany his master, but the most important thing was that he couldn't walk out of Luo Shang and Lan Linger's shadow. He didn't want to see Lan Ling and Luo Shang being all lovey-dovey while his heart was being cut by a knife. Tian Ran remained at Mount Luochen. She would often stare at Feng Haochen in a daze for some reason. Muyu noticed something strange. He always felt that Tian Ran was a little strange. Originally, Tian Ran wanted to leave the Moyun Mountain Range with Luo Shang and the others, but since Muyu chose to stay, she decided to stay as well. "Remember to look for us at the 50-mile garden in the south," Luo Shang said. Muyu didn't know what kind of place the 50-mile garden was, but he still nodded. Tian Ran followed Feng Haochen like a shadow every day, asking all sorts of questions with great enthusiasm. When she was with Feng Haochen, Tranquil was always full of smiles. When Luo Shang pulled Tian Ran over, only Muyu was left. He glanced at Muyu, then turned to Tian Ran. "Are you really not going to tell Master?" Luo Shang asked Tian Ran. "Tell Senior Chun Feng what?" Tian Ran asked, a trace of undetectable panic flashing through her eyes. "Back then, you were the one who accidentally leaked the news of Jian Ying and Chun Feng being in the Moyun Mountain Range. You were also the one who came to ask me for help. If you didn't have that kind of relationship with him, do you think I would be so polite to you for hurting someone I care about?" Luo Shang said. "Tian Ran, it was you?" Muyu frowned. He always thought that it was Luo Shang who leaked the news of Jian Ying and Chun Feng, but he didn't expect that it was Tian Ran who leaked the news. Tian Ran pursed her lips, lowered her head, and said, "I don't want him to feel guilty." "Guilty of what?" Muyu was getting more and more confused. "Are you going to hide it from him forever? Once you leave the Moyun Mountain Range, you may never see him again. Are you willing to do that?" Luo Shang said slowly. "Are you blaming him?" Tian Ran suddenly burst into tears. She cried without any reason, which made Muyu feel a burst of confusion. Why were girls' tears so worthless? Tian Ran sat on a rock, sobbing. Luo Shang's words seemed to have touched her soft spot, and she actually cried uncontrollably. Muyu suddenly panicked. A girl crying in front of him made him feel a little lost. He glared at Luo Shang, not knowing why Luo Shang made her cry. "I don't blame him. I really don't blame him. As long as I can stay with him for a moment longer, I'll be satisfied." Tian Ran sobbed. Tian Ran came to a remote place like the Moyun Mountain Range alone just to find Jian Ying and Chun Feng. She had an indescribable feeling for Jian Ying and Chun Feng. She cared for the immortal Du Sword in every possible way, and she envied Mu Yu and the others for having the Heaven Sword. Back in the Dragon Tiger Gorge, Tian Ran actually sacrificed herself to block Gue Xuanyue's sword for Feng Haochen. After returning to the Luochen Mountain, Tian Ran stuck to Feng Haochen every day. Wherever Feng Haochen went, she would follow. She even helped Feng Haochen weed the vegetable and medicine gardens. If all of this was only because Tian Ran admired Jianing and Chun Feng, it would be a bit far-fetched. Muyu seemed to suddenly understand something. He carefully looked at Tian Ran and found that Tian Ran looked a bit like his master. Muyu widened his eyes and said in disbelief, "Tian Ran, you can't be master." Tian Ran is master's biological daughter. Luo Shang finished Mu Yu's words for him. Muyu looked at Luo Shang. Luo Shang didn't seem to be joking, but how was that possible? Tian Ran's master was Miao Yuyan, and Miao Yuyan was only master's lover. Tian Ran's master was actually Tian Ran's mother? 15 years ago, before he came to the Moyun Mountain Range, he secretly went to the Red Dust sect to bid farewell to my mother. That night, my mother accidentally gave birth to me. I didn't have a father when I was born. My mother always told me that my father was a true god of the 3 continents, the savior of mankind. He did great things and told me not to hate him. I always knew that he was in the Moyun Mountain Range, but my mother didn't allow me to find him. When my cultivation reached the nascent soul realm, I finally snuck out. I wanted to know what my father looked like. Tian Rant's eyes were red. She didn't have a father when she was born. Her father always existed in her mother's stories. She was a sensible child and listened to her mother, but she was also a simple child. She accidentally told the story of Jian Ying and Chun Feng in the Mayan mountain range in front of the Gate of Hell. She and Luo Shang met by chance. Luo Shang recognized her immortal Du sword because the immortal Du sword resonated with Luo Shang's Fun Tian sword. After knowing about the conspiracy of the Gate of Hell, she went to find Luo Shang for help. At that time, Luo Shang was burning with anxiety and returned to the Moyun mountain range before her to investigate the situation. She arrived later. She came to the Moyun mountain range and had been bitterly searching for her father, the true god of the three continents. She found him, but she didn't tell the truth. She knew that her father didn't abandon her, but he didn't know that his daughter existed. She also knew that as a father, it was a very guilty thing to not have raised his daughter. She didn't want her father to feel guilty. Her father was doing a great thing. She would rather her father not know about his daughter. She only wanted to quietly stay by her father's side. Even if it was just for a moment, it would be worth it. Don't say it. Don't let him know. Tian Ran sobbed. How much courage did she have to choose not to acknowledge her father in front of her yearning? Although Tian Ran was simple, she was very sensible. Muyu sighed. He also didn't have parents. He had already forgotten what his mother looked like. He had been an orphan since he was young. He could understand Tian Ran's feelings. No wonder Tian Ran always respected Feng Haochen and was even willing to sacrifice herself to save him. She chose to do it without hesitation. She only wanted her father to do his things safely. If you don't tell Master, it's a very cruel thing for him. He's already prepared to die with the millions of people in the Moyun mountain range. In a few years, you won't be able to enter the Moyun mountain range. You won't be able to see him again, Muyu said solemnly. Wouldn't it be more cruel to tell him? Who would be willing to not be by their daughter's side when she needs her father the most? He didn't do it on purpose. My mother said not to interfere with what my father does. He has his reasons. We can't be a burden to him. Tian Ran shook her head. Muyu was silent. If Tian Ran didn't want to say it, he would respect her choice. This matter needed to be decided by Tian Ran herself. Luo Shang took Lan Ling, and left the Moyun mountain range. Xiang Nan, Qing Yan, and Qing Mei also left with them. Only Muyu and Tian Ran remained. The Luochen mountain seemed to have quieted down. The two troublemakers seemed to have stopped causing trouble. They sat there quietly and tossed little Shuai around. Sister, will senior brother and the others come back? Kong Kong stared blankly at the sky. Brother, senior brother, said that when we can cultivate, he'll come back to pick us up. Meow Meow tossed little Shuai over, but Kong Kong didn't catch it. Little Shuai fell to the ground and cried out in dissatisfaction. A year passed in the blink of an eye. Tian Ran had become a member of the Luochen mountain. She was very happy every day and helped Feng Haochen with all kinds of trivial matters. Girl, I already said that I'll wash the clothes myself. Feng Haochen sat on the chair helplessly and watched Tian Ran wash the clothes diligently. After wringing the clothes dry, she took them to the side to dry them. Uncle Feng, my master has told me all kinds of stories about you since I was young. If my master knows that I'm doing something for you, she'll definitely praise me. After Tian Ran finished drying the clothes, she walked over and moved a small stool to sit beside Feng Haochen. She looked at Feng Haochen with blissful eyes. After sitting for a while, she simply started massaging Feng Haochen's legs. Girl, you're very considerate. When do you plan to go back? If you don't go back, your master will be worried, Feng Haochen said with a smile. Let's wait a little longer. Muyu walked over. He had been cultivating in his master's spirit gathering array for the past few months. His cultivation level had also been increasing day by day. The spirit gathering array improved by his master was full of spirit chi. Muyu's cultivation speed was also very fast. When Big Brother Muyu reaches the 9th firmament of the Golden Core realm, we'll leave, Tian Ran said. Muyu nodded. He didn't dare to tell Tian Ran that his master had used the Spirit Chi Eye and the purple gold spirit stone to make a strengthened version of the Spirit Gathering Array. This had already allowed Mu Yu's cultivation to reach the 9th firmament of the Golden Core realm. According to Tian Ran, the Spirit Chi in this Spirit Gathering Array was several times more vigorous than in the 3rd continent. With Mu Yu's talent, cultivating to this level in a year was not an exaggeration. The Spirit Chi in the 3rd continent was vigorous. Tian Ran was originally the pride of the Red Dust sect. Her father was a true god of the 3rd continent. Her talent was already heaven-defying. In addition, the people in the 3rd continent were not like the people in the Moyun mountain range. Because of the restrictions of the immortal confining prison, people who were too young could not absorb the Spirit Chi and could only cultivate at the age of 12. The people in the 3rd continent started cultivating from a young age. Tian Ran had already been cultivating for nearly 10 years. Reaching the nascent soul stage in 10 years was already considered rare in the 3rd continent. Mu Yu knew that Tian Ran had been using him as an excuse to delay the time to leave the Moyun mountain range. She wanted to spend more time with her father. Mu Yu did not have the heart to expose this matter. However, he also knew that every day they walked was a day wasted. His master did not have much time left, so he had to make the best use of his time. Master, Kong Kong blew up the latrine again. Meow Meow's shout suddenly came from afar. Feng Haochen patted his forehead with a headache. Neither of these two fellows is easy to deal with. Sigh. Little girl, you're the most sensible one. If only I had a daughter like you. Tian Ran was startled. Her eyes suddenly turned red. She quickly stood up and said, I'll go see them. Tian ran away in a panic. Feng Haochen looked at her with a puzzled expression and asked, What's wrong with the little girl? She seems to be crying. Mu Yu secretly sighed in his heart. She's crying because of you. She's your daughter. However, Mu Yu promised Tian Ran that he would not tell anyone about this. He said, It's okay. When you talked about your daughter, it might have reminded her of her parents. Her background is quite pitiful. She was abandoned by her father when she was born. Her father was a fool and did not know about the existence of his daughter. Fortunately, her mother sent her to the Red Dust sect, and she was accepted as a disciple by your old lover. Chapter 131. After delaying for a few more days, Mu Yu finally decided to leave. Little Shuai also decided to follow Mu Yu. Feng Haochen had never told Mu Yu about Little Shuai's origins. He only told Mu Yu to take good care of Little Shuai. In the end, Mu Yu still became an old hen. He had always wondered if Little Shuai would hatch into an ugly duckling. However, although Little Shuai was muddle-headed, it could sometimes give people unexpected surprises. Of course, smashing Mu Yu's head didn't count. It knew a lot of knowledge that Mu Yu didn't, and it couldn't tell where this knowledge came from. It was as if it was born with this knowledge. Kong Kong and Meow Meow stayed behind. They were too naughty. Other than their master, no one could take care of them. They also didn't want to leave their master. You two have to listen to your master, understand? Mu Yu patted the heads of the two troublemakers. These two little guys weren't young anymore. In a few years, they would be able to cultivate. When the time came, it would be much easier for their master to guide them personally. These two were always restless. In this year, they had brought the new Little Shuai, this strange egg, to Luochen Mountain and caused a lot of trouble. He didn't know when they would be more sensible. Mu Yu was actually worried that if they had cultivation, they would tear down Luochen Mountain. I know. We can't be naughty and can't make our master angry. Eldest senior brother already said this before he left. Why are you repeating it again? Kong Kong grumbled. Although he complained, he still couldn't bear to leave. The senior brothers and sisters who grew up with them had all left. In the future, only the two of them would be left on Luochen Mountain. Usually, when they were tired from resting, they would disturb other people's cultivation. Now that everyone was gone, they didn't know who they would disturb in the future. After you guys left, it became boring. Meow Meow also pouted. She held on to Tian Ran's hand and didn't let go. In this year, when Tian Ran wasn't around, she pestered Tian Ran. The two of them had a lot of fun. There were always all kinds of secrets between girls. There are some things that Meow Meow could not talk about with empty words. You'd better behave yourselves. If I hear that you blew up a toilet or a hornet's nest again, I'll definitely come back and teach you a lesson. Muyu got angry when she thought about the toilet explosion a few days ago. That horrible scene still made Muyu nauseous. The things in the toilet were scattered everywhere like flowers by a celestial maiden. Tian ran over to take a look. She immediately covered her mouth and ran back to let Muyu clean it up. Muyu would never forget the process of cleaning the toilet. After he was done, he simply wanted to beat someone up. The smell on his body had been chased by flies for several days, which made him hold back a bellyful of anger. Blow up a hornet's nest. We've never done that before. Kong Kong's eyes lit up. He didn't care about Muyu's feelings at all. Instead, he found an interesting idea from Muyu's words. He had already thought that there was a nest of the Black Horse Peak in the grass behind the mountain. He was ready to fight with the Black Horse Peak. That's a good idea. Thank you, senior brother. We'll have a try. Meow Meow and Kong Kong looked at each other and could not hide the excitement on their faces. They had already thought about how to deal with the Black Horse Peak and were ready to put it into practice. Hey, it's not a joke. Muyu rolled her eyes and quickly grabbed the two of them by their collars. Once, he was fooled by two troublemakers to poke a hornet's nest. At that time, he had no cultivation and was badly stung by the hornet's nest. Fortunately, he got into the tree and removed the red packet on his face so that he would not cry out in pain. Uncle Fong, you have to take good care of yourself. I've thrown away the ragged clothes. I bought several new sets for you. You'll look more energetic if you wear them. I've also bought several pairs of boots. I've talked to Ching Song Taoist, and he will send someone to send you clothes and boots that fit you every once in a while. They know the size. I've helped you remove the grass in the vegetable garden. I pulled it out myself without using magic. And Shu's cooking skills are not good. Let Elder Sun cook in the future. You don't have to cook, Tian Ran said, as if she was familiar with her family's treasures. Feng Haochen smiled and nodded. He did not interrupt Tian Ran and patiently listened to Tian Ran's instructions. Muyu did not interrupt Tian Ran. He quietly waited for Tian Ran to finish her words and then said, "And Shu, Elder Sun, take good care of Master. Master, we're leaving. Be careful." And Shu was still expressionless. "Don't worry. I'll take good care of Master." Elder Sun sighed. Muyu was his savior and gave him a respectable identity. He became an elder of Ching Song School. Although this elder had no real power, his status was still very high. Those self-cultivators who didn't give Elder Sun a good look in the past all scrambled to curry favor with him at the Pine Tree sect. Even the heads of other sects didn't dare to slight him. 30 years in the East, 30 years in the West. Elder Sun had been a gray disciple his whole life. He lived submissively under the gaze of self-cultivators. Now, he could finally hold his head high and be a person. All of this was given to him by Muyu. He knew how he could repay Muyu. Feng Haochen patted Muyu and straightened Muyu's collar. Remember, don't be confused by the power in your heart. The cultivation world outside the Mayan Mountain Range is crueler and wider. You just have to live up to your heart. Muyu nodded. A trace of sadness flashed through his heart. He clenched his fists. There were some things he had to do. Although those things were too difficult for him, he still had to try. The selfless true God was about to face death. How could Muyu let the initiator of all this, the guardian of the threefold palace, get away scot-free? Feng Haochen turned his head and patted Tian Ran's shoulder. A strange look flashed through his eyes. He seemed to want to say something, but he kept hesitating. After a long time, he said with a smile, "Be careful. You have to give that letter to your master." Feng Haochen asked her to give a letter to Miao Yuyan. Tian Ran put the letter away like it was a treasure, afraid that she would lose it. "Can I give you a hug, Uncle Feng? When I go back, I'll tell my master that I hugged the true God Sword Ing Chin Feng. In the future, even my master will be jealous of me," Tian Ran said with a smile. Her smile was not as pure as before. It was forced. She was trying her best to hide the reluctance in her heart. The person in front of her was her father, but she was unwilling to call him Dad. Her father was the true God of the threefold continent. He was the hero of the entire human race. This was enough for her. She had accompanied her father for more than a year. Although she did not call him Dad, what did it matter if she called him Dad? Feng Haochen opened his arms and pulled tranquility into his embrace. The father and daughter hugged each other, not daring to acknowledge each other. Tian Ran's heart kept trembling. Her eyes were red, and she kept holding back her tears. If she could, she really wanted to hug her father like this forever. In fact, she did not throw away Feng Haochen's tattered clothes. She folded them neatly and placed them in her heaven and earth inside her sleeves. She did not know why she did this. Perhaps it was for her mother, or perhaps it was for herself. Her father liked to dress very simply. Those were the clothes that her father had worn for a long time. There were also some places that she had personally mended. Perhaps when she missed her father in the future, she could take them out and have a look. Tian Ran hugged Feng Haochen tightly. Then, she secretly wiped away the tears at the corners of her eyes, pretending as if nothing had happened. Then, she and Mu Yu soared into the sky together. They waved their hands and slowly left. "Take care, master." Mu Yu sat on the flying sword. He watched as Luochun Mountain gradually disappeared into the distance. Finally, it disappeared into the vast land. He had stepped onto the path of cultivation here. It was also here that he had grown to his current level. Now he had to leave this place. He knew that he might not be able to return for a long time. He might not be able to return at all. The future was uncertain. If he wanted to save his master's life and the lives of the millions of people in the Moyun mountain range, he would have to do many difficult things. Finding the Sanchong Palace and finding the guardian of the spell array was a long and arduous task. He did not know if he could do those things. Feng Haochen stood with his hands behind his back, looking at the backs of the two people in the distance. The loneliness in his eyes could not dissipate. He sighed heavily, and his face was full of melancholy. "Secmaster, you still haven't made up your mind to tell Tian Ran about this," and Shu said. The wind from halfway up the mountain blew at Feng Haochen's clothes. His figure looked so thin, and there was a sense of vicissitudes. However, it was still difficult to hide the stubbornness in his heart. He had sacrificed himself for the human race, but he did not receive the reward he deserved. Fate was writing unfairness on him. He shook his head and said, "Tian Ran and Yin look so alike. It's as if they were carved from the same mold. How could this girl hide it from me? This girl has stayed here for a year. She's 15 years old this year. Excluding the 10 months of pregnancy, she's been here for almost 16 years. That night 16 years ago, I made a mistake. If this girl had not appeared here, how could I have known that Yu Yin would be pregnant by accident? So many years have passed in the blink of an eye, and the child has already grown so big." Feng Haochen knew. He had known about it for a long time. The moment he saw Tian Ran, he almost knew it. How could he not recognize the feelings of blood and flesh? Tian Ran and Miao Yuyin were too similar. He could even see his own shadow in Tian Ran. Blood was thicker than water. Even a person like Feng Haochen, who was usually calm, could feel his heart surging with emotions. However, he did not say out loud, because he did not know how to face his own daughter. He was the hero of the human race, but he was not a good husband, and he was not a good father. He became the true god of the world, but he could not fulfill his most basic role. "She's been so good to you this year. I'm afraid she knows you're a father, right?" Elder Sun had seen through this long ago, but they chose to remain silent. He and Shu were outsiders. If Feng Haochen and Tian Ran chose not to acknowledge each other, they had no reason to say anything. The wind at the mountainside grew stronger. It blew at Feng Haochen's sideburns, causing his white hair to become a little messy. This true god who once commanded the heavens and earth trapped the entire Yumon with his strength alone, allowing the human race to continue to exist. Now he was so lonely. He was like a candle flickering in the wind, about to be extinguished at any time. It doesn't matter if she knows or not. I can't give her the best, so I won't break her life. This year of being together has satisfied me. I've let her and her mother down. I'm worried that if I tell her, I won't be able to convince myself to continue staying here. However, I have to stay here. I can't leave Mayan Mountain Range. I have to bear the consequences of my own actions. I have to protect the people here. If she doesn't want to leave, then wouldn't I be harming her? She's been without a father for so many years. She'll just treat it as if she doesn't have a father like me in the future. For the peace of the human race, he sacrificed his entire life's cultivation. He separated from his lover and did not dare to acknowledge his daughter. However, he was betrayed by the Sanchon Palace. However, the treacherous villain was still in charge of the entire cultivation world. He was the boss behind the scenes. The real hero was already past his prime. Even the people from the Gate of Hell dared to target him. Feng Haochen smiled bitterly. He turned and walked up the mountain. He knew he was running away, but he had no choice. So what if they acknowledged each other? Could they be together after acknowledging each other? After acknowledging each other, he could only harden his heart and push his daughter away again. He had already hurt his daughter once. If they acknowledged each other, he would hurt her a second time. Rather than that, it was better to play dumb. Chapter 132. There was only one way out of the Mayan Mountain Range, and that was through the vast 100,000 mountains. It was impossible to fly across the 100,000 mountains with the cultivation level of the Jindan period. There were 4th and 5th level demon beasts living in the 100,000 mountains, both in the sky and on the ground. Only nascent soul cultivators could deal with them. After passing through the 100,000 mountains, one had to be careful not to intrude into the territory of demon beasts that were especially territorial. Otherwise, one would easily be hunted to death. After leaving the Luochen Mountain, Muyu went to the flowing water village where he grew up to take a look. He saw that the old but strong village chief was still telling stories to little kids in the grain-sunning field. Today, the village chief was telling the story of dancing at the sound of the rooster. What made Muyu blush slightly was that he had become the main character in the story. "I never knew you were so hard-working," Tian Ran said with a grin. The two of them stood in a place where no one could see them. Muyu didn't want to disturb the village chief. "There are many things you don't know. I'm a very hard-working person." Muyu straightened his back and put on a serious look. To be honest, when he was at the Luochen Mountain, he did dance at the sound of the rooster every day. With Enshu knocking on the door at a fixed time, it was hard for him not to get out of bed. "If a rooster disturbed my sleep early in the morning, I'd definitely stew it," Little Handsome said with a grunt. Muyu smiled and left the flowing water village. He knew that if he left the Mayan Mountain Range, he might not see the village chief for a long time. But he had no choice. He had more important things to do. "When the time comes, you have to follow me closely. I have a Dharma treasure on me that can hide our auras. As long as the demon beasts don't have good eyesight, they basically won't be able to discover us," Tian Ran said. The entrance to the 100,000 mountains was quite far from the Luochen sect. With Muyu's speed during the Jindan period, it would take him several days to fly. Fortunately, Tian Ran was there. Even so, Tian Ran had said that it had taken her nearly a month to pass through the vast 100,000 mountains. It was no wonder that the people from a threefold palace had violated the agreement. If they were to transport millions of people out of the Moyun Mountain Range from the 100,000 mountains, it would indeed consume a huge amount of manpower. They did not want to do such a thankless task. To them, Yumon was already trapped. Since they could save their breath, they would leave the millions of people to fend for themselves. What if it's a demonic beast with good eyesight? Muyu asked. Most demonic beasts wouldn't have bad eyesight. Those with good eyesight might not necessarily discover us. The most frightening thing is those with good noses. They can even sniff out our hidden aura, Tian Ran said seriously. Many demonic beasts relied on scent to identify their prey. Her transcendent artifact could not completely cover their scent. It could block the scent of ordinary demonic beasts, but it could not block the scent of certain demonic beasts. Muyu was not very afraid of these demonic beasts. If they could not outrun him, they could still rely on the trees to escape. Since Tian Ran could come in, she could definitely get out. Therefore, in comparison, there was nothing to worry about. The two of them quickly swept through the air, leaving behind afterimages. Soon, Muyu could see the Mount Fulong in the distance. The Mount Fulong was on their way out. Behind the Mount Fulong was the vast 100,000 mountains. The vast forest in front of them was where the Yuman gathered. Muyu remembered that the old tree chief had said that Yuman had found a way out. He did not know if it was true or not. The immortal confining prison was originally used to trap the 5 elements Yuman, but at the same time, it also trapped millions of people in the Moyun mountain range. If Yuman had already escaped from the Moyun mountain range, then the immortal confining prison had no meaning. That's right. Why didn't I think of that? Muyu looked at the Mount Fulong and suddenly slapped his head. If he could prove that Yuman had already left the immortal confining prison, then the immortal confining prison would be no different from a decoration. He just had to find the guardian of the 3-layered palace and let him release the immortal confining prison. Then, he would not have to think of a way to kill the guardian. As long as he released the immortal confining prison, the millions of people in the Moyun mountain range would be able to survive. His master would also be able to survive. Even if he lost his cultivation, he and Tian Ran could find a quiet place to spend their old age in peace. Tian Ran would also not have to hide from him anymore. What's wrong? Tian Ran asked curiously. To the Mount Fulong. I'll explain to you on the way. Muyu stepped on his flying sword and headed toward the Mount Fulong. Although Tian Ran did not understand why, she still followed closely. The Mount Fulong was still so quiet. Nothing had changed because of the previous incident. After confirming that Yuman was indeed in the Mount Fulong, something big happened in the cultivation realm. The Qingsong Taoist and Jinren Jihua entered the nascent soul stage. The cultivation realm was reshuffled. No one cared about Yuman anymore. Everyone was having a headache trying to protect themselves. Now, the cultivation realm was still under the rule of the Qingsong Taoist. However, Feng Haochen ordered him not to look for Yuman. With the strength of the cultivation realm in the Moyun mountain range, fighting with Yuman would be like hitting a rock with an egg. The Qingsong Taoist also vaguely knew some things, so he would not do something so strenuous and unrewarding. Muyu had ignored Yuman's existence ever since his master disappeared. He had never told his master what the old tree leader had said to him. The old tree leader said that they had found a way to leave the immortal confining prison and return to the 3-layered continent. If that was the case, why did his master still maintain the immortal confining prison? Muyu was a little excited. At this moment, he suddenly hoped that the old tree leader's words were true. Although he knew that Yuman's return to the 3-layered continent would be a disaster for the 3-layered continent, as long as Yuman escaped from the immortal confining prison, there would be no need for the immortal confining prison to exist. The millions of people in the Moyun mountain range would be saved, and his master would not have to suffer like that. On the way, Muyu had already told Tian Ran his thoughts. Really? Then what are we waiting for? Quick, give me the direction. I'll be there soon. After hearing Mu Yu's explanation, Tian Ran was both happy and worried. She knew that Yuman's escape from the immortal confining prison would mean a disaster for the people of the 3-layered continent. However, only if Yuman escaped from the immortal confining prison would she not have to watch her father's life be taken away by the immortal confining prison. Yuman's matter should be the responsibility of the entire human race. We can't put all these responsibilities on Master, and we can't sacrifice the lives of the millions of people in the Moyun mountain range. Muyu said. Feng Haochen had made so many sacrifices, but in exchange, the 3-layered palace had betrayed him. The 3-layered palace had handed Yuman's matter to Feng Haochen and the millions of people in the Moyun mountain range. They did not care about their lives, but the people of the 3-layered continent lived freely. How is this fair? Tian Ran's fingers moved, and the red lotus art appeared. She instantly took Muyu thousands of feet away. Muyu felt an uncomfortable tearing sensation sweep through his body. He did not like this method of traveling. Although this method of traveling was fast, it consumed a lot of spiritual power. Unless she had no other choice, Tian Ran was not willing to do this. Muyu had already memorized the location of the Yuman's nest. At that time, he had merged with the Bodhi tree and remembered the appearance of the entire forest. With Tian Ran's help, they only spent 15 minutes standing at the place where the Bodhi tree had been. However, the Bodhi tree was gone. The large open space was empty and overgrown with weeds. No Yaman stretched out its branches to tie them up. Muyu wandered around a few times and went in and out of the nearby trees. He still did not find any trace of the Yaman. It's really gone. Muyu was a little excited. He knew that he should not be excited about the Yaman's disappearance. It was most likely that it had found a way to escape the immortal confining prison. However, he did not care so much because this was what he wanted to see. There was no trace of a Yaman here. It seemed to have left for a long time. There was a large hole where the Bodhi tree had been planted. There were many shrubs growing in the hole. The Bodhi tree seemed to have been moved away by the Yaman. They're gone. Does that mean that they really found a way to go to the third continent? A smile appeared on Tranquil Rant's face. Although the return of the Yu Meng demons to the third layer continent represented a disaster, she also knew that the people of the third layer continent were too selfish. The third layer palace's actions were too excessive. Why should her father use his life in exchange for the peace of the third layer continent? Even if her father was willing, would the millions of people in the Moyun Mountain Range be willing? I know you're from the third continent. Perhaps you don't like what I'm saying. However, the Yuman is the responsibility of the entire human race. It is not the responsibility of the millions of people in the Moyun Mountain Range alone. To be honest, I'm really happy that they escaped the immortal confining prison. Muyu carried little Shuai and searched everywhere for clues, hoping to find something left behind by the Yuman. I'm from the third continent, but I'm also Jian Ying and Chun Feng's daughter. The Yuman is the responsibility of the entire human race. My father can't bear it alone. Back then, he had already defeated 5 Yuman spirit masters and exchanged a few decades of peace for the third continent. He had done so much and sacrificed his lifetime's cultivation. Why should he give up his life? The millions of people in the Moyun Mountain Range can't die in vain. Tell me how to find them. I want to help. Tian Ran couldn't be impartial when it came to her father. However, she knew that there was nothing wrong with Muyu's words. In the matter of the immortal confining prison, the treacherous third palace was the biggest culprit. They should be the ones to die. The return of the Yuman to the third continent might bring disaster to the people of the third continent. However, after such a long period of peace, the people of the 3 continents had almost forgotten who had fought for this land for them, who had sacrificed himself, who had been willing to use his own cultivation and life in exchange for this hard-won peace. It was the former true god, Jian Ying and Chun Feng. However, what was his current situation? What did he get in return? He had lost all his cultivation, couldn't reunite with his daughter, and was trapped in the Moyun Mountain Range. Even the people from the Gate of Hell had their eyes on him. What about the third palace? They still managed the entire continent from above. They were the most powerful force in the 3 continents, and everyone followed their lead. They did not pay any price, and they threw all the matters of the Yu Meng demon clan to Jian Ying and Chun Feng. They tore up the agreement with Jian Ying and Chun Feng to save the humans in the Moyun Mountain Range, and they sat back and relaxed as their emperor. It was time for the peaceful third continent to become lively. Only then would it be fair to the people of the Moyun Mountain Range. Only then would everything Jianing and Chun Feng did not go to waste. At this moment, the bumpy Mu Ling suddenly rushed out from Mu Yu's shadow clone sword. It circled in the air a few times, and then quickly flew in a direction. Over here. Chapter 133. The broken sword shuttled through the trees and headed towards the depths of the forest. That was the direction of the 100,000 mountains. Soon, the number of trees around them began to decrease. A wide river rushed past them. They flew along the river for a distance, and their bodies began to feel hot. The surrounding temperature had unknowingly reached a very high point. What's going on? Muyu sensed the change in the surrounding temperature, but all he could see were bare rocks. He did not understand where this blazing feeling came from. He looked up at the sky and saw that the sun was not very big. Volcano. Tian Ran pointed ahead and exclaimed. As they flew over a mountain, they saw the bubbling magma in the mountain. The magma did not erupt. Instead, it gathered at the crater of the volcano and did not flow down. However, it rippled in the crater of the mountain. From time to time, sparks would splash out and then fall back down. The broken sword turned a corner and rushed towards another mountain, disappearing behind it. Muyu hurriedly followed and stopped halfway up the mountain. He grabbed the broken sword to prevent it from getting lost. This was a very spacious place. What entered their eyes were 5 large mountains that surrounded them in an orderly manner. Looking from the sky, these 5 mountains were very strange. There was a mountain full of lush trees that were full of vitality. Upon closer inspection, one would realize that all the trees were Bodhi trees. There was a mountain that was completely red. From time to time, fiery red magma would emerge from the top of the mountain. This magma flowed from the top of the mountain to the foot of the mountain, but disappeared at the foot of the mountain. Another mountain was completely grayish-white and shining with light. It was formed from all kinds of precious metals. A mountain in the north was formed from sparkling and translucent crystal stones. It looked incomparably hard. The last mountain was actually an ice mountain that was emitting cold air. One could feel the bone-chilling cold from afar. These 5 mountains were located in a regular pattern. In the center was a huge 5-pointed star that was carved out of an unknown material. There were some strange objects placed at each corner. Those objects were very big and looked like houses. What is this? Tian ran, and Mu Yu landed on top of the 5-pointed star and sized it up. It's the 5 elements formation. Mu Yu remembered that his master had told him that Yuman was skilled in the 5 elements escape technique, which was specially used to counter the 8 trigrams formation of a human race. He carefully examined the objects placed in the 5 corners, and as soon as he saw them, he actually cried out. He recognized these 5 items and had seen them before. The dragon-seeking array that Elder Sun had set up back then was made up of these 5 items. 10,000-year evergreen wood, black sea ice, ancient spirit fire, meteoric iron, frozen rock. The 5 things here were over 100 times larger than the 5 things they had used before. One could imagine how much energy such a huge array base could produce. Although the array base of this array was the same as the dragon-seeking array, the array pattern and array shape were different from the dragon-seeking array. It was even more complicated. Could it be that Yuman had used this to escape from the Moyun mountain range? If only Master was here, he would definitely know if this array was the teleportation array Yuman used to escape. Mu Yu and Tian Ran both landed in this array. In the middle of the array were strange carvings. Mu Yu did not know how these carvings worked. He had been busy cultivating for the past year and had not learned anything about array formations from Feng Haochen. At this moment, he regretted it. If he could have learned a little bit, he might not have been so blind. Let's go to the falling dust mountain to find my father. Tian Ran also felt that it was not good to stay here for long. After all, this was Yuman's territory. They did not know if Yuman was still here. If a large group of Yuman rushed out and surrounded them, it would be troublesome. Mu Yu nodded. The 2 of them were about to soar into the sky. However, at this moment, the 5 array bases suddenly lit up. Rays of colorful light shone on their bodies. A terrifying force came from the array bases and began to tear their bodies apart. What's going on? Tian Ran wanted to fly up, but she was shocked to find that even with her nascent soul cultivation, she could not gather spiritual power. It was as if there was something suppressing her cultivation. Mu Yu's expression changed. They were too reckless and committed a big taboo. Arrays could not be broken casually. Otherwise, they would be trapped by the array since they had no experience in breaking arrays. They did not think too much about it at first. When they landed, they realized that this was an array formation. However, ordinary arrays needed to be activated. However, this array formation seemed to activate itself as soon as someone came in. If Yuman relied on this array formation to leave the immortal confining prison, did that mean that this array formation would also teleport them to the Moyun mountain range? No, we can't leave the Moyun mountain range yet. If this array formation could teleport them out, then they could save the danger of trekking through the Shirwan mountain range. However, the matter regarding Yuman was not clear yet. Muyu did not want to leave the Moyun mountain range just like that. Muyu ran towards the edge of the pentagram. He had to tell his master about this matter and let him think of a way to make a decision. However, an invisible barrier appeared in front of him and bounced him back. He landed heavily on the ground. At this moment, Tian Ran suddenly let out a shrill scream. She fell to the ground in pain and curled up into a ball. Her body was constantly convulsing. Tian Ran, what's wrong with you? Muyu ran to Tian Ran's side. He did not understand what had happened to Tian Ran. Muyu's body was fine. Other than some tearing sensation, he did not feel any discomfort. However, that force was unbearable for Tian Ran. Moreover, it seemed that the situation was very serious. Tian Ran's face was as white as a sheet of paper. It's so uncomfortable. I feel like I'm going to split open. This array formation is strange. Tian Ran closed her eyes tightly and said in pain. This array formation is used to teleport Yaman. Once it teleports a human with a human's physique, they will be torn apart. Little Shuai rolled down from Muyu's shoulder and landed on Tian Ran's body. But I'm also a human. You're half a human, Little Shuai said straightforwardly. What about you? You're fine too. Do you have any way to save Tian Ran? Muyu said anxiously. He knew that he had the power of Yaman in his body. It was probably because of this that he was fine. Don't rush me. I'm trying to save her. Little Shuai's body suddenly emitted a gentle light that covered Tian Ran's entire body. He said, Sister Tian Ran, no matter what happens later, remember to hold me tightly. Don't let go. Otherwise, you'll die. Rich spiritual energy continuously flowed out from Little Shuai's body. He had stayed in the spirit Chi for so many years, and his body had absorbed a lot of spiritual energy. At this moment, the spiritual energy he emitted surrounded them, interfering with the power of the teleportation array and counteracting the strange power that wanted to tear Tian Ran apart. Tian Ran hugged Little Shuai tightly. Her face was still very pale, and it seemed like her pain didn't lessen at all. Muyu stood in place, not knowing what to do. He didn't know how to stop the teleportation array. No, I feel so uncomfortable. Tian Ran groaned. She felt like she couldn't hold on any longer. Muyu, use the power in your body to help me. I can't suppress the power of this array formation either. Little Shuai shouted. What should I do? Muyu didn't know how to use the power in his body. He couldn't use that kind of power casually. The accident in Dragon Tiger Gorge had already explained everything. If he used that kind of power, the consequences would be even worse. It's that broken sword you have. Tell it to protect Tian Ran. That bastard will listen to you. Little Shuai had always disliked Muyu's broken sword, which had been bitten full of holes by insects. Last time in the spirit Chi, it was completely restrained by that broken sword. However, at this moment, in order to save Tian Ran, it had no choice but to ask Muyu for help from that broken sword. Broken sword, broken sword. You'll definitely listen to me, right? Hurry up and help me protect Tian Ran. Don't let her be hurt by this array formation. Muyu held the broken sword. He didn't know if this broken sword could understand human language. Now, he could only try his best. The broken sword trembled, but it just stayed quietly in Muyu's hand without any reaction. It won't listen to me. Muyu clenched the broken sword. At this critical moment, this thing actually didn't help. It has already protected you. Hurry up and hug Tian Ran. Little Shuai left Tian Ran's body and jumped onto Muyu's shoulder. Muyu quickly hugged Tian Ran tightly in his arms. A faint body fragrance seeped into Muyu's nose. He looked down and his face turned red. He saw Tian Ran's slightly raised peaks. Usually, Little Shuai liked to stay in that place the most. Tian Ran's body couldn't help but tremble. She seemed to be very uncomfortable. Muyu could only hug her tightly. His body was tightly pressed against Tian Ran's body. Tian Ran slowly stopped trembling. Muyu's heart was in a panic. He was hugging a girl so close that he could even feel Tian Ran's beating pulse. Tian Ran fell into a drowsy state. She instinctively hugged Muyu's neck. Her breath could almost blow Muyu's eyelashes. Muyu felt a part of his body begin to heat up, He was in the prime of his youth and at the time of his first awakening of love. There were some things that he couldn't control. Ah, it's not suitable for children. Little Shuai suddenly shouted. Shut up. Muyu awkwardly composed himself and hugged Tian Ran tightly. Bang! 5 rays of light soared into the sky. Muyu, who was in the center of the transmission array, only felt that many things seemed to flash before his eyes. He was astonished to find that his and Tian Ran's bodies had become illusory and then gradually scattered into many small fragments. But he didn't feel any pain. Immediately after, a dazzling light exploded. Muyu felt that his body was suddenly pulled by something. It was a very bad feeling. It was as if he was involuntarily sent flying, and his internal organs were seriously displaced. He almost let go of his hands, but he knew that if Tian Ran lost his protection during this process, the consequences would be unimaginable. So Muyu hugged Tian Ran tightly. He felt that his hands were going numb. Vaguely, he felt that there seemed to be a majestic force outside attacking them, try to prevent them from leaving. But the fluctuations of the 5 elements array were firmly guarding them, blocking that force outside. He saw that there seemed to be many golden array patterns flickering between heaven and earth. Those golden array patterns were constantly turning into monstrous killing intent that rushed towards Muyu and the others. Muyu remembered these array patterns. When he was fighting with Gue Xianyue, these array patterns were also faintly discernible. If he guessed correctly, the immortal confining prison wanted to prevent the 5 elements array from transmitting the people inside the array. Muyu felt that he was on the verge of collapse under the bombardment of these array patterns. This kind of destructive force was something he had never seen before. Under the pincer attack of the heaven and earth array, he actually felt fear from the depths of his soul, as if his soul would scatter in the next moment. Although the 5 elements array was like a small boat in a storm, it was still stubbornly sailing. No matter how the surging waves hit it, it was always able to timely hug the people on the boat and block that violent force. He didn't know how long this feeling lasted. Muyu only felt that his body suddenly stopped, and then the feeling of the world spinning filled his mind. He couldn't tell where the sky was and where the earth was. Then he found that his feet suddenly touched the hard ground, but the huge impact made his feet unsteady, and he fell heavily to the ground. A rich spiritual qi swept through his body. This spiritual qi was so mellow, dozens of times richer than the spiritual qi in the Moyun mountain range. Muyu was shocked. He knew what had happened. Judging from the purity of this spiritual qi, he must have come to the 3rd continent. Tian Ran lay in his arms, her chest rising and falling slightly, but her eyes were tightly closed. There was a vast expanse of white fog around them, and visibility was very low. Muyu raised his guard. He came out from Yumon's teleportation array, which meant that they were very likely to be in Yumon's lair at this moment. Chapter 134. However, there was no sign of Yumon, and he didn't know where Yumon was. The surroundings were covered in white fog, and the ground was covered in wet soil and gravel, as well as some weeds. Muyu carried Tian Ran. He didn't know how Tian Ran was doing, but he had to protect this girl. She was his master's daughter, and he couldn't let anything happen to her. He walked a few steps and suddenly realized that Little Handsome seemed to have disappeared. He quickly turned around and returned to his original spot. Little Handsome was lying on the ground, motionless. He kicked Xiao Shuai and whispered, "Hey, are you okay? We can't stay here for long. Let's get out of here quickly." But Xiao Shuai was kicked so hard that he rolled out and hit a rock. After making a muffled sound, he stopped moving. Muyu's heart sank. Could it be that something happened to Little Handsome? Usually, if Little Handsome was kicked out by Muyu like a ball, it would definitely hit Muyu's head angrily. However, it didn't fly up, and this made Muyu feel uneasy. He gently put down Tian Ran and picked up Little Handsome. When he saw it, his expression changed. There were cracks on Little Handsome's body, and the cracks extended to the entire eggshell. There was also a lot of spirit qi spewing out from the cracks. Little Handsome's eggshell had always been tough. It could even take a slap from a nascent soul cultivator. It couldn't be smashed or cooked and was like a rubber band. Muyu was never worried that something would happen to it. However, at this moment, cracks had appeared on Little Handsome's eggshell. This was bad. The 5 elements teleportation array was used to teleport Yaman, but Little Handsome looked like a normal beast. Could it be that it couldn't withstand the pressure of the 5 elements teleportation array? Muyu gently patted Little Handsome and found that Little Handsome still didn't make any sound. He was anxious. Just now, he had been thinking about protecting Tian Ran and neglected Little Shuai. He thought that Little Shuai would be fine, but who would have thought that Little Shuai would not be able to survive the teleportation array? He had a headache. Whether it was Tian Ran or Xiao Shuai, they were both people and eggs close to him. Now that both of them were in trouble, he was the only one left in this godforsaken place. He had to constantly pay attention to whether or not a Yaman would jump out. He was extremely nervous. No matter what, he could not stay here any longer. If Yaman discovered him, the consequences would be unthinkable. He had to leave as soon as possible. Muyu could only use the root grass he had on him to tie Little Shuai up and hang him on his back. Then, he carried Tian Ran. Tian Ran was still unconscious, and he didn't know how she was doing. Fortunately, he realized that he could fly, so he flew up into the sky on his sword. The fog was too thick. He flew very high before he finally got rid of the fog below. High up in the sky, he could see steep mountains all over the place, like a stone forest. Flying too high was a huge challenge for a self-cultivator like him who was afraid of heights. Fortunately, he was forced by Shu to fly at very high altitudes. After flying for several hours, he finally landed on the highest mountain peak. Then he saw the outline of a small city in the eastern sky. It was very far from here. He put down Tian Ran on the top of the mountain and, at the same time, placed Little Shuai on a rock. Tian Ran was still unconscious. Muyu tried to use his spiritual energy to heal her, but it was useless. He didn't know what to do for a while, not to mention that there was also a problem with the strange egg. He was unfamiliar with the third continent. The only person he knew was his unreliable second senior brother. However, Luo Shang was in the 50-mile garden in the south. Muyu didn't know where the 50-mile garden in the south was. Little Shuai, don't scare me. Hurry up and wake up. You have to help me see what happened to Tian Ran. Muyu anxiously poked Little Shuai with his hand. At this moment, he realized how much he needed Little Shuai's help. Little Shuai always knew a lot of things that he didn't know. It had helped Muyu a lot several times, but this time, it had a problem. Little Shuai was a mysterious guy that Master had brought out of nowhere. Muyu usually quarreled with it, but when something happened to it, Muyu didn't feel good. Bada! Suddenly, a soft sound came from the eggshell. Muyu was happy. He poked Little Shuai. Little Shuai? Strange egg? Are you okay? Bada! Another crack appeared on the cracked eggshell, and there seemed to be more and more cracks. Muyu didn't know what was in Little Shuai's thick eggshell. He wanted to help Little Shuai break the eggshell, but he resisted. He knew that when a butterfly broke out of its cocoon, it couldn't have any external help. Otherwise, it would harm the butterfly. He guessed that Little Shuai was similar to the butterfly. It's so hard. Little Shuai's cursing voice suddenly came from the crack in the eggshell. It seemed to be angry about something. Muyu finally breathed a sigh of relief. He had to worry about a person and an egg at the same time. He was worried for nothing. Suddenly, a clear hole appeared on one side of Little Shuai. A dazzling light shone from the hole. Spiritual energy quickly leaked out of the egg. More and more cracks appeared on the eggshell. The number of holes in the eggshell also increased. The speed at which the spiritual energy was released also increased. After a while, the eggshell was full of scars and was about to break. Little Shuai is going to transform. A happy voice came from the eggshell. Then, with a bang, the eggshell was torn apart. A white furry thing jumped out and ran around in the air. It was as if someone had lit a firecracker on its butt. Swish! The eggshell cracked open, and a majestic amount of spiritual energy sprayed out of the eggshell. It almost threw Muyu out. He tightly protected Tian Ran. He also firmly held onto a rock to stabilize himself. At this moment, little Shuai's body emitted a terrifying wave of spiritual energy. It spread out with little Shuai as the center. This aura didn't have any oppressive feeling. It was purely domineering. In an instant, the white cumulus clouds in the sky were blown away. The white clouds in the sky dissipated, but soon, dark clouds covered the sky. Thunderclouds appeared in the sky. Blue sparks flickered. A sacred and majestic aura surged in the clouds. It seemed to be accumulating power. At this moment, more than a dozen thick lightning bolts suddenly fell from the thunderclouds. The majestic heavenly might covered the sky and the earth as it struck the white shadow in the sky. You want to strike me? That's too much. I'll eat you. Little Shuai's body shone brightly. The white light bloomed, and its aura was not weaker than the dozen lightning bolts. It let out a strange cry and charged at the dozen lightning bolts. A large amount of spiritual energy gushed out. Such a terrifying amount of spiritual energy was rarely seen. Muyu was shocked. He didn't understand why little Shuai's appearance would cause such a huge commotion. However, he knew that if he stayed here, he would be in trouble. If he was hit by those lightning bolts, it wouldn't be a joke. He quickly carried Tian Ran and retreated far away. Little Shuai's body was shrouded in white light. He couldn't see what it looked like. The spiritual energy it emitted was too terrifying. It made the earth tremble. Oh! With a loud bang, the blue lightning collided with the white light. Instantly, the mountain that Muyu was on was split in half. Gravel flew everywhere, and a violent aura blasted out in all directions, tearing the air apart. Even the air was distorted, and the sound of an explosion rang out. It was as if thousands of mountains had collapsed, and the stone forest that Muyu was on was razed to the ground. If Muyu hadn't run fast enough, he would have been hit by the violent impact. He didn't know what little Shuai was. What kind of sin did it commit in its previous life? Why would it be struck by lightning when it broke out of its shell? However, he knew that such a huge explosion would definitely alarm everyone. What he was most worried about was that this place wasn't far from where they had just come from. He wasn't sure if this place was the territory of the Yu Meng demons. If the Yu Meng demons were really attracted to this place, then even Tenmu Yu wouldn't be enough to escape. Even if it attracted humans from the 3 continents and not Yamon, with little Shuai's commotion, it would definitely be captured and used as a specimen for research. The blue and white light dissipated, and a black shadow fell from the sky and landed on the grass with a plop. Muyu quickly ran over and rummaged through the grass. Finally, he found a black creature that looked like a kitten or a puppy. It was moaning half dead. Aya, why did the lightning strike me? Is it because I'm too handsome? Handsome my ass. Why are you so ugly? F*CK. I've heard of handsome people being struck by lightning, but I've never heard of ugly people being struck by lightning. When Muyu saw the creature, he was a little disappointed. He thought the creature would at least look good after breaking out of its shell to be worthy of the lightning. However, its entire body was charred black and smoking. Its tail was as big as 2 of its body. Other than its sapphire-like blue eyes, the rest of its body looked extremely ugly. How am I ugly? I'm handsome. Little Shuai unhappily snuggled into Muyu's arms. Muyu smelled a burnt smell. He pinched his nose and grabbed little Shuai's fluffy tail and threw it onto his shoulder. He still wanted to hug Tian Ran. At this moment, Muyu felt many Jindan period and nascent soul stage auras rushing over. He saw many figures from afar. The commotion here must have alarmed many people. He had no time to hide. He quickly whispered, "Little Shuai, someone's coming. Hide your aura and don't talk." Why? The spirit chi in your body is too dense. It will capture you and suck all the spirit chi in your body dry. Muyu stuffed little Shuai into his clothes. Little Shuai mumbled for a while. It was stingy with its aura, like a miser. Seeing that Muyu didn't seem to be joking, it quickly hid the aura overflowing from its body. It looked like an ordinary puppy that was struck by lightning. Not long after, two figures suddenly appeared in front of Muyu. One of them was a young man with thick eyebrows and big eyes. He asked, "Boy, what happened here?" This young man was actually at the nascent soul stage. He saw that Muyu was just a boy from the Jindan period, and he was holding an unconscious girl in his arms, so he asked arrogantly. Just now, a huge demonic beast was born here. As soon as it was born, it triggered the heavenly lightning. It was so powerful that it even swallowed the heavenly lightning. We were just passing by and didn't want to be hit by the heavenly lightning. My junior sister was seriously injured. Muyu said sadly. A demonic beast that can trigger lightning tribulation is definitely not simple. Where is it now? The young man asked. Muyu pointed in the direction he came from and said, "It ran over there." It seemed to be injured by lightning, so it didn't have time to pay attention to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be alive. You're lucky. Senior brother, I heard that the demonic beast that triggered lightning tribulation is a rare beast. If we can tame it, our earthly imperial sect will have a great help. The other beautiful woman beside him laughed. Then, the two of them immediately flew in the direction Muyu pointed. They didn't suspect Muyu. The unconscious Tian ran in Muyu's arms was very convincing. Earthly Imperial Sect? Was it also one of the 8 sects? Muyu didn't know the origins of the Earthly Imperial Sect. Many people who came later were led to the direction he came from by Muyu. He thought that would be best if those people could find Yumon's teleportation array. This way, they would know that Yumon, who was imprisoned in the Moyun mountain range, had come to the Sanchong continent. Perhaps he wouldn't have to personally inform the Sanchong Palace. Chapter 135. This city was called Mist Breath City. The city was like a sleeping tiger, quiet and majestic. Tian Ran was right. Statues of the true god, Sword Ing Chunfeng, could be seen everywhere on the 3rd continent. At the top of the city tower of Misty Breath City, there was a huge statue. It was a handsome man with an indifferent expression, cultured and refined. He stood on a flying sword with his hands clasped behind his back, just like a deity. He looked into the distance, making people feel reverence in their hearts. Muyu was surprised to find that this man looked exactly like his master when he was young. Master was so handsome when he was young. No wonder he was able to win the hearts of the people from the Red Dust sect. Muyu felt a sense of closeness to this statue. It was a wonderful feeling to be able to see his master's statue in a foreign land. This city was very big, and there were all kinds of self-cultivators living in it. When Muyu saw the cultivation levels of these people, he found a very shocking problem. Most of the self-cultivators here were in the Jindan period. In the Mayan mountain range, people who had reached the Jindan period were usually elders of some sect. However, here, only those who had reached the Jindan period could be considered as real self-cultivators. Those who could reach the Jindan period in the Mayan mountain range were all very old and had white hair. The youngest one was almost 50 years old. However, there were geniuses like Bai Liang and Zhu Wenxing everywhere. Muyu had seen a few people who had reached the 9th heaven of the Golden Core realm in their 20s, not to mention the 2 people who claimed to be from the earthly imperial sect. Because of the immortal confinement prison, the spiritual energy in the Mayun mountain range was greatly limited. However, this was the 3rd continent, where the spiritual energy was several times that of the Mayun mountain range. It was not unacceptable to have a fast cultivation speed. With Muyu's cultivation level at his age, he was actually much stronger than many people in the 3rd continent. However, Muyu knew that he did not have the right to show off his current strength, so he did not reveal his true cultivation level. He was carrying a girl into the city in disheveled clothes, which attracted the attention of many people. Everyone looked at him strangely. Muyu didn't care about their gazes. He found an inn, booked a room, and put Tian Ran on the bed. "Hurry up and wash yourself." Muyu called for a waiter to fetch a bucket of water. Then, with a look of disgust, he threw little Shuai into the bucket. Little Shuai's body was still emitting a burnt smell, and it was dark and swarthy. Xiao Shuai stirred the water in the bucket, splashing the water everywhere. Muyu was too lazy to pay attention to it, so he stayed by Tian Ran's side, staring at Tian Ran's sleeping face in a daze. Sister Tian ran is fine. She just couldn't bear the pressure of the teleportation array and fainted. She'll wake up in a while. Xiao Shuai came out of the water with a splash. His body shook, and all the water droplets were shaken off. He slowly landed on Tian Ran. Huh? Why did you become white? Muyu looked at Xiao Shuai in surprise. This was a very cute creature. Its entire body was furry, and it had a round head. Its 2 ears were drooping to the side, and it had a pair of blue gem-like eyes and a pink nose. It looked like an exquisite kitten, but its tail was as fluffy as a squirrel's, and its short limbs were scratching around restlessly. You're not an ugly duckling. Muyu was a little disappointed. Xiao Shuai had become a completely different beast after taking a bath. That was incredible. Everyone says that I was struck by lightning because of my handsomeness. Xiao Shuai wagged his tail smugly. Then his stomach suddenly grumbled, and he said, I'm hungry. What are you hungry for? I didn't see you eat when you were an egg. Muyu grumbled. I don't care. I used to watch you guys eat, but now I want to eat too. I want to eat roasted chicken legs. Xiao Shuai wagged his tail. Needless to say, Xiao Shuai had been hanging out with Kong Kong Meow Meow every day, so he must have seen a lot of food. He felt a little regretful. If Xiao Shuai had hatched earlier, he could have let him try and Shu's cooking, and Xiao Shuai would definitely have the idea of going on a hunger strike. He rubbed his stomach and thought that he was also hungry. Tian Ran should be fine here, so he grabbed Xiao Shuai and went downstairs. Muyu found a place near the window and called the waiter to bring a large plate of roasted chicken legs. In the end, he also ordered a lot of chicken legs. He was no longer a pauper. Feng Haochen had given him a lot of spirit stones before leaving, and he felt like there were at least tens of thousands of spirit stones. He was overjoyed. He had suddenly become a tycoon, and he could squander as he wished. If a true god of the 3 continents couldn't take out hundreds of thousands of spirit stones, then it really wouldn't make sense. Muyu had been a poor child for so long, and he suddenly found out that he was secretly a rich second-generation heir. Occasionally, he also had to splurge. No wonder you guys like to eat so much. It turns out that it's so delicious. Xiao Shuai slurred as he stuffed the chicken leg into his mouth. He really didn't understand how such a big chicken leg could be stuffed into his tiny mouth. He hugged the chicken leg and gnawed on it happily. In just a few bites, the chicken bones scattered all over the table. Be a little more reserved. Muyu tried to use his chopsticks to pick up the chicken leg, preparing to elegantly taste the chicken leg. He was now a rich second-generation heir, so how could he eat like Xiao Shuai in an ugly manner? However, the chicken leg was too heavy, and he couldn't pick it up even after a few tries. In the end, he threw away his chopsticks in disappointment and directly grabbed it with his hands to eat. He didn't care if he was a rich second-generation heir or a poor second-generation heir. He had to fill his stomach first. The 2 cultivators at the next table were talking about something called the pill test. Muyu had nothing to do, so he gnawed on the chicken leg while listening. It was naturally very important to come to an unfamiliar place and ask about the situation. After listening for a while, Muyu finally understood the general idea. He went to listen to the discussion at another table and found that most of these cultivators were talking about the so-called pill test. The pill test seemed to have become a hot topic recently. Muyu was no stranger to the matter of medicinal pills. His master had also told him a lot about magical medicinal pills before, but he didn't tell Muyu the method of alchemy. Muyu only knew that medicinal pills were divided from 1 rank. The higher the rank, the more precious the medicinal pill. Qi refining stage cultivators could refine rank 1 medicinal pills. Foundation establishment stage cultivators could refine rank 2 medicinal pills, and so on. At the beginning, the slave pill was a rank 6 medicinal pill, which meant that only spirit severing stage cultivators could refine it. Low-level medicinal pills were basically worthless. The cultivation world was full of rank 2 and rank 3 medicinal pills. Only those who could refine rank 4 medicinal pills could be considered a real alchemist. However, it didn't mean that one could become a rank 4 alchemist after reaching the nascent soul stage. Whether or not one could become a qualified alchemist depended on many factors. One also needed to go through the Danding Sect's assessment. This wasn't the first time Muyu heard about the Danding Sect. The Danding Sect was a sect with a very high status in the three continents. This sect specialized in cultivating alchemists. If others wanted to be recognized by the cultivation world as an alchemist, they first needed to be recognized by the Danding sect. The Danding sect recognized alchemists by holding an annual pill test. Those who passed the pill test would be granted the title of alchemist by the Danding sect and become a real alchemist. The location of the pill test wasn't fixed. This year, it just happened to be in Lanchi City. Muyu didn't know how the pill test was held, nor did he know how to refine medicinal pills. He heard that the pill test will be held in a few days, so he was also interested. Feng Haochen didn't teach them how to refine medicinal pills. He only said that Muyu and the others weren't suitable for alchemy. However, Muyu still wanted to experience it. The status of an alchemist was very high in the cultivation world. Many medicinal pills had miraculous effects. It was said that some medicinal pills could even bring people back from the dead. This kind of medicinal pill was too heaven-defying. Basically, it was very rare in the cultivation world. Even if there was one, it would only be kept by experts with exceedingly high cultivation. It would absolutely not be taken out. As for things like the life-prolonging pill, it was a 5th-level medicinal pill. It was quite precious, but it wasn't very rare. That kind of medicinal pill would weaken if used too much, and it would also bring about many side effects. It was only used by people who didn't have much lifespan left. Innkeeper, give us 3 first-class rooms. An old-fashioned voice rang out as the 3 of them walked into the inn. Many people's gazes fell on them as whispers rang out. Okay. The innkeeper quickly went up to welcome them. The 3 people stood in front of the counter. The one who spoke was a youth with a cold face. He was wearing a white Taoist robe with black cloud patterns on the back. On his chest, there was a pattern of an alchemy cauldron, which was very eye-catching. Behind him was an old man with white hair and a youthful face. He was wearing a purple robe. His robe was inlaid with gold and looked very noble. There was also a pattern of an alchemy cauldron on his chest. This old man was leaning on a green walking stick with a medicinal gourd hanging on it. He had a youthful face and white hair. He was hale and hearty. Next to him stood a young man. The young man's age was about the same as Muyu. He looked lazy and sloppy, but his cultivation was also at the 9th level of the Golden Core realm. His robe was the same as the cold-faced man's. It was also a black and white Taoist robe. However, the black and white Taoist robe felt strange on him. These 3 people were, without a doubt, alchemists. Alchemists usually had a uniform alchemy attire to show their identity. The alchemy attire was usually white. There was a Tai Chi pattern or an alchemy cauldron pattern on the chest. The edges of the attire were black, and the hem of the attire was dotted with black clouds. Many alchemists who came to participate in the alchemy trials wore alchemy attire. As for this purple-robed old man, his identity seemed to be very unusual. Isn't this the alchemy cauldron Sex Yao Wuji? I heard that this alchemy trials is hosted by the famous 5th-level alchemy grandmaster. Grandmaster? Heavens! It's actually him? Why is he here? It said that this grandmaster was able to refine a 5th-level pill when he was still in the nascent soul realm. His name shook the world. Yes, the spiritual energy required to refine a 5th-level pill is not something that a nascent soul realm cultivator can possess. It's unbelievable. His cultivation has already reached the out-of-body realm. He is a true 5th-level alchemist. The guests who were eating began to whisper. Some people recognized the old man and quickly discussed with their companions. The people from the alchemy cauldron sect were all alchemists. Their identity and status were very respected in the 3 continents. Many alchemists from the alchemy cauldron sect were respected by tens of thousands of people. Chi refining, foundation establishment, golden core, nascent soul, out-of-body realm. Muyu counted with his fingers. A 5th-level alchemist. This meant that this grandmaster had the cultivation of an out-of-body realm. Muyu was shocked. A nascent soul realm cultivator was already enough to give him a headache. Why was there an out-of-body realm cultivator here? The 3 continents were indeed full of talents. Isn't it just refining pills? Roll it into a meatball. I'll know whether the meatball is delicious or not with just a glance. Xiao Shuai pouted, and the chicken bones fell accurately onto the plate. The chicken bones that Xiao Shuai spat out could at least fill a small bucket. Fortunately, Muyu was not lacking in money. Otherwise, he would not be able to feed this little foodie. Meatball? Delicious? Muyu thought for a moment. I've only seen slave pills and life extension pills. I've never eaten a pill before. I wonder how it tastes. Muyu and Xiao Shuai were two country bumpkins who had never seen the world. They only knew that pills were round, edible, and had some powerful effects. They did not know anything else. If others would know that they compared precious pills to meatballs, who knew what they would think? Fellow Taoist, have you finished eating? Can I have a seat? That you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.